Okay, well, hello everybody. This
Hello.
is in session number 5. Um,
Wow.
it's again,
We're
it's again three of us. Uh, Isabel, Greg, and me, Marcus. I don't know if we need to introduce each other or if everybody knows or can identify us by their name, by
Who's
our names.
Greg?
Who's Greg?
Freeloader.
Well, very nice.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is kind of well, all of the sessions may be special, but what we have planned for today is essentially that we're looking at Elburz's championship from the last few weeks, and so we invited some of the winners as well as Elburz to join us here to talk about the championship and talk about the projects that they have been working in, or yeah, things connected to this. So as
That was quite the championship.
that was, yeah, and nice comments, Greg. The commentator section was great. I was listening to it mostly, not watching it too much. But maybe we should start as usual by looking at what actually in session is, Isabel, and this is kind of our part here, where we
Uh-huh.
have a look at in session. Do you want to
Right.
explain?
Sure. So as Marcus says, this is our fifth one, and basically we're doing it every 3 weeks, and it's an idea that's been around for a while. The idea to sort of have an open office scenario where people would come and talk about their work, and we would our developers would, as it is, get under the hood with their networks and projects and help optimize and answer questions and that sort of thing. And so far, it's been really interesting. We've had, I think they've all been like extremely rich in terms of content, and I hope we've helped improve some workflows and some projects.
Yeah, and if you're interested to being on this show, you just have to visit derivative.ca/in-session. The URL is down there, and fill out a little form and send us your questions and your project, and then we'll get in touch with you.
Yeah,
Um, the
and
Yeah, sorry.
I was just going to say, don't be shy, because as you can see, we're pretty harmless, and
Right.
and
We try
yes.
to. And you can also review the last 4 in-sessions here on this website. There's a playlist. So all of this is being recorded, and then you can review those as well, or look at them, look for tips and tricks, what we have talked about before. And maybe this is also the proof in the pudding. Is that an expression? I don't know.
Yep, yeah,
Um,
yep.
that we're harmless. Yes, exactly. So let's see who our first guest here is, which should be Elburz. Hello,
Albers.
welcome to the stream.
Oh, I see two Albers.
I see two Elburz too, but one of them seems to be frozen.
Uh-oh. He
Uh-oh.
was just saying he had the best internet in the world.
I know. We can hear you a little bit.
Yeah, but it's not. Yeah.
Let's see. Well, we can talk with Greg because Greg was part of
I was there.
Elburz's
He certainly was.
whole initiative, which was the Interactive Immersive Championship. Um, Greg, you were judging on 2 of these events. There were 4 events in total, and
Yeah.
you were the judge on which parts?
Oh, one was interactivity challenge, and one was a technical challenge where we gave to the contestants a database of UFO sightings and asked them to make something of it. The first one was largely about devices and inputs and forming something out of that. The other 2 judges were Matt Swoboda from Notch, and they also were good enough to generate to give some prizes for the event, and also fourth on the second day, Dead Mouse was one of the judges as well, and it's really interesting listening to his view of creating media with many tools and his really in-depth knowledge of TouchDesigner. he's really absorbed it to the hilt, and he's directly a great teacher of other people just by the way he goes online and just builds stuff live.
I
So
guess,
it's great having him as a judge as well.
I wish we could get Elburz back.
Yeah, let's see. Elburz just dropped out of the call, but I'm thinking he's probably coming back in. I can see if I can.
It was very nice of Elburz to actually join us today because he moved house and literally just dropped a whole bunch of boxes down on the floor and set up his computer, and so understandable.
New house woes, but let's see if we can get him back. Well, one thing that I want to ask as well, Greg, is that basically during this, or for us all, it was a little bit like this, that during those challenges, we actually got a very condensed look at how people are working with TouchDesigner. Were there any things that stood out for you, Greg and Isabel, when looking?
Well, for me, it was just, sort of, it was a real testament to the software, actually, just that every time 29 different people making completely different work. So it was, the diversity was amazing, and everything really looked good. And I don't know, I was quite blown away.
Yeah, for me, it was the diversity of the way people made things. Some people were very op-centric, some people were very scripting-centric. Writing scripts takes a little more time, so if you only have an hour, you really got to put things together quickly. One guy like Dan Kenny made something that was that was the challenge, where you gave him, I think, a Twitch infrastructure, and he managed to hook it up with an AI learning system. I forget what the AI system was, but it hooked it up really nicely with TouchDesigner, and you would type in on Twitch some keywords, and they'd be generating images synthetically and generatively via the AI service, and then they would appear on polygons flying around on the screen. So it was a really concise use of TouchDesigner in a short time with some external tools and external services. So there's a lot of stuff there that I had never seen before. Art style wise, and and of course I'm always analyzing when people are building things how we can make the software better and easier to make the things that they're sometimes struggling with.
And perhaps also, oh no, now I lost my train of thought. Damn it. I had something on one point that you just mentioned that I wanted to add something from what I observed, but it totally, I got distracted. Damn it. Well, anyway.
It was also a very, very good show. I must say that Elburz and Matthew Reagan really were fabulous co-hosts, and I mean, it's such a pro undertaking, right? I mean, streaming 30 different people, and all the switching, and quite a small crew behind the scenes, but Walker Keen's special system, just very, very impressive. It makes you kind of wonder, when is the next one?
So for everybody who didn't watch it, also it's the challenge. One of the challenges was that you actually only had an hour to complete any of these tasks. So people had to approach this with this tight time constraint. I find that impressive. That was given the diversity of the challenges that people can adopt so quickly to it.
Yeah, and they're usually starting with nothing on their screen with some instructions, and here's a little thing, make something out of it. So it's much more risky than playing video games, because video games are very structured, and people have practiced the same kind of things over and over again strategically with their teammates. But this is like solo and totally from scratch, and you're making art.
Yeah, I remember an interview with Elburz and Ginger Lee Synthestruct, who, by the way, isn't with us today because she is very, very busy with work. And but we're thinking of having InSession 5.5, so that we can have Ginger so that we can have Ginger. But anyway, she was saying that she actually crammed for the championship, that she studied. And that's one of the things that I do want to hear more about, but how people would prepare for something like this, other than try and get a good night's sleep and really crack the fingers, and I don't know. I mean,
yeah. Well, it's books open too, though. It's not an exam where you have to be in a box, because you can refer to anything around you, materials, web pages, instructions, and stuff like that. So
I was on the
good to practice.
I was on the discourse chat, and I was really impressed also at how the competitors were helping each other, and it was really I mean, it was really pure, very like pure touch designer ethic, touch designer community ethic. It was very lovely to see.
Yeah.
So we Elburz dialed in again, but I cannot hear him. Oh, he left again. So I wonder if
should we go to Ori and then?
Check. Oh, there's Elburz.
Oh, how's it going?
Elburz.
I'm alive. I don't know why the camera is not showing up, but it should show up in a sec.
Wow. There you are. Yes.
We did it.
Welcome. Well, we've been talking about you for the last 10 minutes.
All good things.
Hopefully. Sorry about that. I'm in the middle of a move, and then my internet so the crazy part was I could hear the Skype call the whole time, but it wouldn't send out my words or video.
Yeah.
So I apologize. I'm here now.
That's called being censored. You were censored.
I think I was censored. Yeah. Or I jinxed it, because right before the call I was like, "Hey guys, my internet's so good at this new app.
Yeah.
It's so great." Right before the call starts, bam! Like all the computers go offline and everything. But thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
Thanks for joining in the middle of your move. That's really fantastic that you would make the time for us.
Congratulations again on organizing the whole championship. You had a fairly short lead time on it. Like when you first talked about the idea, and then actually to when it happened, that was pretty quick organizational effort there.
Yeah, it was pretty insane. I don't know if I would not recommend trying to run a big event with. Because what was it? I think it was like 4 or 6 weeks before I hit you guys up, and I was like, "Hey, we have this idea that we want to do."
Yeah, I thought it was so unpractical.
And the crazy part was we only talked about it for like 2 weeks before we talked to you. So it wasn't like we had all this lead time either of like, "Oh yeah, well we're gonna cook it and then we'll just let them know and then like it's all good." But it was because the thing was we had always been planning this in the back of our mind. It was like, "Hey, you know what would be like really fun if we did some kind of live touch designer event, like a competition." Trying to bring some of that like esports vibe to it, where good production, it's a lot of fun, it's engaging for viewers even if they're outside the community, but then there's also something on the line for folks that are putting their feet in the water. I don't think it's an expression, but it could be an expression. But something cool for them, like having licenses and prizes. And the reality was that we actually had another, so in a true Elburz fashion, like now that we finished that, there's another huge thing that we're gonna like do in like 4 to 6 weeks again. Probably like 6, because I need like a week of downtime. But so we were originally gonna do that thing first, and then we were gonna do this event in the fall. But once like COVID started rolling around, and I think our industry was really hit bad. Like everyone who had anything to do with live events and like people gathering together, like it was all just shut down. So we're like, oh my god, like we can't launch a new thing. Sorry, go ahead, Isabel.
First out, last in. It took me about 10 minutes to get that straight the other day, but definitely first out, last in. That's us.
Out of business and back.
Yeah. We took everybody took a real wallop, and I mean in a way it was there's the only good aspect, if we can use good in this circumstance, is that people had so much time to hone their skills and learn new stuff and teach other people and do championships and
it was great that we hooked you up with Walker in order to build the infrastructure, take his existing infrastructure for running large events and retooling it for the competition.
Yeah, that was pretty critical. And like going back to what you guys were mentioning, like when we were, so the funny story, like this is a funny behind the scenes story, and this explains a little bit of, I wouldn't say some of the challenges, but some of the what would be a good word? Like,
Um,
obviously, like some parts of the event could have been way better, and it felt really,
adventures.
like, yeah, some part of the adventures were like, oh well, we should have made the challenges longer, or like we should have done this. The funny way we approached it was, we had the idea and we're like, hey, let's do it, and we have to do it really quick because if COVID magically goes away and everyone goes back to work, no one enters, right? No one enters, nobody watches because everyone's busy again. So we're like, okay, well then let's set a date first. So then we set the 2 dates, and then we decided the times, and we're like, oh, what would be good times is 12 to 4 p.m. Eastern. So we had the times locked in, we had the kind of like name, and then we started advertising, and then it's like, oh my god, so like how do we actually like run an event like this? Like how many challenges do we need? What are they? Then we started getting into the nitty-gritty of like how the thing would work. But then we had these constraints already in place of like, okay, well, we have 2 days of 4-hour blocks to fit everything in, and we had to go through different iterations of the format of like how to do it. But then that's where like Greg is saying, folks like Walker, Evan, Coco
And-
Lab, Into, it's like all the folks.
And
who really-
Matthew,
Yeah.
Matthew, was he involved in the planning a lot?
Oh, a ton, yeah. Matthew and Hal especially were like my kind of go-to trusted ears, where I'm
Yeah.
like, okay,
Hal
this is what
Bell,
I'm
yeah.
thinking.
Great
Here's a
team.
spreadsheet with like a bunch of challenge ideas. Like, what do you think? Is this one good? Is this one good? And so poor Hal, actually, I ran Hal through a bunch of challenges, and I just like sat there watching him to see if like, is this challenge even possible in an hour for like a pretty experienced developer? And some of them were, and then some of them he was like 45 minutes in and there was nothing there, and I'm like, okay, well this one's like not good. This is gonna be too hard, and there's gonna be like nothing fun to show of it from everybody. So it was really like all the folks helping us, like we mentioned, like Walker already had the system for getting all these live streams together, because otherwise it probably would have been like pretty low budget, Skype NDIs or OBS Ninja or Zoom. But Skype NDI for a couple people is cool, but then
I know, yeah.
for 30 people it would be like insane, right? Like I just
would
don't
be
know if it's gonna
impossible.
work.
Yeah.
So I have a question for you. I mean, after this, is there anything specifically that you would do differently? Or, I mean, from our perspective, it looked super smooth and extremely pro. But what about you? I mean,
Yeah, there's a bunch of things. Like, we already been debriefing a bunch of times in between events after the second one, and I think a couple of key things we would change up would be, one of them was like the audio integration. I know on the first day that was a bit of a challenge for us, and we
Audio's
saw folks in the chat saying like, please get the audio, and like we were trying our best behind the scenes. And then for the second one we had a little bit better of a setup where we had background music queued up and ready to go. We had sound checked with a couple of the competitors, even though there was not that much audio in the second event, unfortunately. So I think that's one thing we'd want to like nail in a little bit better. Another one would be probably changing the format of the actual competition. Because something that was really like a buzzkill for me was actually turning away because I think we had just over 40 applicants, and we realized for like just the format of it, like we really needed to keep it like 32 and under. So there were a small handful of people that it was just unfortunate that I just had to say I'm like really sorry, but just because of the limitations of time and the competitors, we can't have you in this one. And I think for the next one, I'd really like to have a way that there would be some kind of maybe open challenge round that maybe wasn't broadcast live, that everyone was doing it and then sending in results or something like that. And then, then we could have going from this bigger open category, then funneling it down to like, round of 32 or round of 16, and then maybe even funneling down to like a group of 8 or something, or finalists.
You've been watching the U.S. Open, right? Exactly. We're starting 256.
Then we're thinking the right things here if that's how they're doing it too.
Yeah, that's right.
I think format would be another thing, and then also we were talking about timing, because it was a bit tough to have the 2-week break between.
oh yeah, I could see that.
So whether we take it down to one day that's maybe a little bit longer, but then has all the challenges, or I think it's tough, right?
That would be hardcore. That would be really hardcore.
Yeah,
Get
but
people really sweating.
we're thinking about that kind of stuff, like that kind of change.
One thing you really improved on the second day was the environment for the judging. On the second day, it was amazing, because we had the judges had a separate feed where we could click any of the contestants and just watch them. click watch them, make some notes, click watch them, make some notes, so score them a bit, kind of thing. So that was really nice and fluid. The first time around it was pretty rough, and like you said, audio is always such a bitch to manage because everybody needs a different audio feed.
Yeah.
You have to worry about levels. What do you send out to your streams? What do you send out to your contestants? What do you send out to each other? You've got private conversations going on. It's audio is always such a huge thing for any live event, and we learned it really completely at this kind of thing because, and the same thing with the Isabel's campfire chats. That was also, even if there's only 3 people involved, it was quite
the audio
quite a thing just to mix it right. So
yeah, it's a challenge, and for folks that were watching,
and it was all done in touch for that one as well. Like
right,
easy
and
math job.
Championship only had
Yay, Roy.
2 people running production. Like it was Walker and Evan were fully running every single part of the back end production, like switching, bringing up feeds, managing audio levels. And I had my laptop here talking, but then I also had one with the run of show, and if we were ahead of time, I was editing the run of show, and if we were falling behind time, I was editing the run of show live. And we had our Discord chat where we're like, okay, well, to save some time, we're gonna skip this part, go straight to this part, or we got a little bit extra time, let's do this thing. So I think it's pretty impressive, and that whole thing was. And to your point, Greg, like if we were gonna do audio, we probably just have to have somebody that's just sitting there like listening to levels the whole time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably like the main elements, and what would be cool next time is go even bigger with it. A conscious decision we made was to find a happy medium between having the event be good production, go off well, have like great partners to help us with it, but I'm sure I could have got on calls with all kinds of high-end companies and sold them a dream of some sort. Then
I bet.
Well, you did. That was us.
Well,
I
did that a couple times.
I was dreaming, man. I was dreaming.
Yeah. But especially like and this may be like a little bit like business thinking for folks out there is, shooting for them, because you can like set the bar low and like, okay, we're gonna definitely hit this bar. Then on the other extreme, it's like we want it to be exactly like these multi-million-dollar companies. We want it to be like Blizzard. We want it to be like Riot Games or something like that. And it's hard to look at that level and say, no, you know what? Actually, we're going to limit ourselves a little bit short of that, just to make sure that everyone is really happy at the end of it. Just to make sure that it goes off well. Just to make sure that then we make good momentum to then do another one that then we can say, okay, well, last time we hit here, we know we can hit this. Now next time we take that next step and go even bigger, right? And I think it's tempting sometimes, like even for us in the beginning, we were like, oh yeah, let's hit up Nvidia, let's hit up AMD, let's hit up Alienware, let's hit them all up, get them in the party, right? Like get that money flowing in. And we had to kind of like pull ourselves back a bit and like, let's be realistic, let's make sure we can do all this stuff. And I think we ended up in like a pretty happy balance where we had folks like yourselves, Notch, really like stepping up to make the event really nice, are good partners to help us do it, and it makes it for the next one, I think.
There is something to be said to keeping it all in the family for the first kind of outing, right?
Yeah.
Before, because who knows what you invite to the table with a bunch of people that you don't know, but maybe you do know them. Maybe you sold them the dream and they're on board and it's all good.
Yeah, and they maybe could have had crazy demands, or who knows who would have been pissed off if the audio wasn't perfect on day one.
Yeah. Like you're streaming? Oh, I don't think so.
Yeah, right. Like who knows what kind of bridges could have been burned that we avoided burning, but then we had like a really great product at the end that now going into the future we've got like a momentum.
So one of the 4 challenges I really, really enjoyed it was the one where the contestants were asked to pick a favorite artist and make anything on that vibe. Copy a piece of art or something inspired by it, and it was so great seeing what everybody picked. Like there's somebody picked Stanley Kubrick things, somebody picked Toy Story, Kandinsky,
Dr. Seuss,
Dr. Seuss, Yauji Kusame. There was Escher. Yeah, they're really great references. So I just wanted to kind of tweak people's imagination in the direction of the people who've influenced them in their lives.
Mm-hmm. And that was like a great suggestion that you had, right? Because obviously everyone can imagine that like I just sat in a room and like invented like everything, but that's like not true at all. Like everyone make this thing possible. Even come down to the challenge, like that challenge, Greg, was like your email. You were like, hey, you know, it'd be like a really fun challenge, like doing this. And I'm like, that's a great idea. And then Matthew was talking about like how he used to do that kind of work in his classes.
Yeah,
get them to do like mimic art.
Everybody has references to past stuff that's amazing. And you're right, we're not inventing things for the first time. Everything we're doing is derivative, right?
my artistic influence would have been Cassini.
Punchline.
Yeah.
So Elburz, can you talk about the next thing, or would you rather not?
Let me think. Well, we don't have too much public info yet. It's going to be really nice because, you know, with the HQ, like our big thing is really tackling the education situation for TouchDesigner and just in the industry in general. And, you know, most of the stuff is focused on touch because that's kind of like our wheelhouse and like what I know best. So it's like super, I know I can go real deep on it. And one of the big challenges, you know, if we roll back like a year, one of the challenges I thought was just having lots of material that had good coverage over lots of techniques. And, you know, that was when we started making our workshop. I guess, well, no, it's not a year ago. That was like a year and a half ago. I forget, it's already like July. Can you believe it's like the end of July?
It's crazy. It has been flying though, right? Time.
It's crazy. So, you know, and back then we're like, okay, well, I want to get coverage on all the different techniques, top to bottom, as much as I can. You know, so we would have like render picking workshop and optimization workshop and like, you know, how do SOPs work? You know, how do, TD Ableton integration work? Like beginner stuff, Python, GLSL, and then we kind of been getting more and more coverage to the point now sometimes it's a little bit difficult when I have to make a workshop. I'm like, what's going to be like the topic this month? And you know, we have it planned ahead, but it's like I'm always thinking, and it's becoming less and less easy to find the topics to hit.
Yeah, but Elburz, I think what you're doing though is you're kind of filling in the gaps of what we're not delivering. A lot of our users do that when they post the components and do workshops on their own. So they don't tell you about optimizing things. And so you have a workshop on optimizing, but certain parts of the software that are kind of often not well explained with anything that we've delivered. You say, okay, let's look at this. There's some secrets, you should know about it, and so you always seem to find the holes in what TouchDesigner's community and us at Derivative have opened up to you.
Perhaps the context, like giving context to a lot of the features where you, Elburz, have your experience in production, and that comes into it.
Building servers.
And then these workshops get a whole different meaning to them because you can apply practical things to the things that you're showing.
Yeah, I think like a really good example of that is as one of the recent workshops was like how to spec a PC and like what parts, how to decide on parts, which on some end is like kind of boring, but it's one of those things where if you haven't ever done it practically, you don't know that, oh yeah, you know what, like we probably don't need a Xeon. Like we can save a lot of money and not get a Xeon processor, you know. i7 9700K is probably going to be just as good as 9900K. And again, we're going to save like a bunch of money. And, you know, trying to mix the context and practicality is always something that I'm trying to do. But, you know, so then the next thing is like, okay, well, now we're getting to this point where we have this like really wide breadth of material. But then the question that we get now with so much material is like, you know, what's the pathway that I got to take to get through this, right? Like, where do I even begin? Is there more of a structured experience through it? Because right now, like, you know, you join the HQ Pro, and in another way, it's nice because you just have all these videos, right? You got like 20, 30 really long workshops, in depth, about specific topics. You click it, you go dive in as you wish. But then for a lot of new folks, it's like, well, I'm a beginner. Like, what order should I do these in? Because I have no idea what to do them in. And so that's kind of part of the next big thing we're trying to fill out. And then combining that also with, I think, a problem a lot of companies have, which is figuring out like what does it mean when someone says like I know TouchDesigner, right? Like that is a huge challenge, I think, from hiring companies, but also when people want to show their work, right? Like, how does someone say, I know TouchDesigner, right? Do they show cool art? Do they show Python scripts? Do they show GLSL shaders? Do they show projection mapping? I think because TouchDesigner is so open to do so much things, it actually becomes hard to show your skill set or identity in any kind of way that is then meaningful for when you're applying for a job, other than just showing like the biggest, brightest thing that you got. And then on the flip side, when you're hiring, like, this is always a challenge for me. Like, man, hiring is sometimes terrifying, because if I haven't worked with that person before, or I didn't personally like teach them how I like to use TouchDesigner, I have no idea what I'm in for. I could get somebody on here who's like a Python wizard and writes the whole network in Python with like 2 operators, and it's like, well, I don't want that. But that person is a TouchDesigner user, right? They could be making really amazing stuff with the longest Python extension, and then like 4 nodes. On the flip side, I could get somebody who's never used Python but makes really amazing graphics, and if I just look at their portfolio, it'd be like, oh great, they know TouchDesigner. But then it's like, oh damn, I need to build like a state machine. You can't build a state machine? Like, oh geez, like, we're so boned, right? So
that's what you need.
Yeah, that's the other side of it, is really trying to both make those pathways a bit more clearer, but then also finding ways to really represent the things you do and don't know, and what kind of masteries that you have inside a TouchDesigner.
Yeah, you want to broaden, and anybody learning Touch wants to broaden their skill set to be not what they came in at. It might be just tops, or something in 3D, or just something related to chops. But everybody wants to broaden their skills. So, I want to know a little bit of scripting, so learn that. Or I want to know more about 3D projection mapping. So there's so many sub areas of expertise that that's what you're trying to help people map out. Is like, work on your weaknesses if you want to develop as a kind of a well-rounded TouchDesigner user.
Yeah, totally. And then also showing those as well, right? So that like, if I was going to hire somebody, I could say, okay, well, okay, I can see really quickly they have these masteries. That's perfect. That's what we need for this gig. Like, come on board. Like, and then I have some peace of mind that I'm not going to get some like crazy network that I can't go in and like do anything in.
So is that something that you think about in terms of graduating people into the workforce who are fully equipped, depending on what part of the industry they want to work in? Is there a graduating exam?
It's definitely something we're talking about, is like how to test people, right? And that was one of the things that the championship was fun at doing, and I think even before the championship started, on our Twitch stream, there were some Twitch streams where I just had an Excel spreadsheet open and I'm talking to chat. I'm like, yo, how do we grade people working in TouchDesign? Like, what's good code quality? What's bad code quality? And we had this funny spreadsheet with like all these notes in it. But I think there's definitely a certain aspect of it that is just like some kind of test or examination. But the reality of it is also, and that's kind of something we were trying to do with the HQ Pro, was there's never enough book smarts that'll make you prepared for the real world. Like, I was really lucky that I was always around people much smarter than me who were mentoring me, like whether it was you guys, whether it was like AV&C folks I was working with, whether it was other developers. There was always somebody there who, even though I knew the book smart stuff because I'd like tested these things, once you get in the field, right, like it's a totally different ball game, right? Like, once there's a client standing over your shoulder, the rules are different than at that moment, right? And and there's a lot of practice. It's funny, like, I'm always trying to push to do courses that aren't popular, and my business partner, who's the co-founder of the HQ, was like, let's kind of space those ones out. Like, a good example was I have a whole workshop that's just reading contracts, and it's literally 2-3 hours a week with Google Docs open.
Yeah,
I literally read line by line through an NDA, an SOW, an SLA, and I explain every single line in these contracts. And the harsh reality is, like, that one didn't sell that well, right? Like, it compared to Python beginner or GLSL beginner.
Yeah.
But that one's an important one, right? Like, you got to have that kind of knowledge, especially if you're going to run your own studio or something, right? And
I mean,
so finding that balance is tricky.
That's great.
In the end, those workshops you prepare and they're available. So once people get to the point where they need it, it's amazing that then through the HQ they have access to that. Hence the programming perhaps it's not always everything can be applied right away. Not every task is necessary right away, but it's there for people then to look at later. Sorry, I don't want to cut anybody off, but I think
but
we
we
need
should.
to keep moving.
Yeah, I'll never shut up if you just let me just roll. I'll roll forever. Don't even worry. So
Which is great. We'll just keep having you on, and we can keep discussing more and more of these things.
the ultimate time filler. That's me.
Yeah.
Just ultimate time. Well,
Nice
thanks
to
for having
see you,
me.
Elburz.
It's a
Yeah,
pleasure.
thank you so
Yeah.
much
Thanks,
for
Elburz.
joining.
Good work.
Good
Thanks
luck with the
everybody for the
unpacking.
support. Yeah, and now I got to go unpack and figure out why my internet is like went from being so amazing to so shit.
Good luck with that, and yeah, congratulations again on a very nice premiere of your championship, and we're looking
Thank you.
forward to seeing more of that.
For
And
sure.
congrats to, big congrats to everybody who, not only the winners, right? Like, damn, those, I always joke, this is my last point, I swear to God, then I'll shut up and like sign off, but I was joking, but also not, if I was in the championship, I would not have won. And I'm like, I'm Elburz, like I'm the guy who knows all this touch stuff. I wouldn't have won this championship. Like, everyone brought so much really crazy stuff to the table, and even the competitors who didn't win, like, big shout out to them, because it's nerve-wracking to put yourself in front of people.
Yeah,
and
under a microscope.
Under the microscope, you got to make these things. Some some competitors faced challenges, like, one person had Unity crashing and Unreal crashing, and it's like sucks, but that's kind of the reality of it. And a really big shout out to them, because being hungry and taking, seizing any of these opportunities that you can is really the ultimate way to like build your career and just keep leveling up.
Awesome.
Very nice words, Elburz.
Thank
Thanks so much.
Yay.
Thanks, guys.
And
Bye.
with that,
I'll try and hang out in the chat, by the way. If my internet
yeah.
works, I'll try and hang out in the chat for
Okay.
like other.
Okay. And with that, we'll have a look at one of the winners, which is who's Ori.
Ori, hello.
Hey guys.
Finally, you're on. Elburz can talk.
No, I love that. I totally get his mindset, and it's fucking awesome to have someone like that in the education kind of
Yes.
realm.
Yes,
Because
for
sure.
this.
You cannot prepare for the real world good enough. It's just pure experience. There's no way around it, and especially with a program like TouchDesigner, like you just talked about how diverse it is, and you can use it in so many ways, and you can know one end and look at the other person on the other end. That's TouchDesigner too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
totally, yeah.
So
Totally.
so let's just back up a little bit. So
Yeah.
I think you learned you found TouchDesigner about 10 years ago, right? And was it when you were at the Vancouver Film School, and was Ronan Tantrum there? Because that's what I think happened, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, you're totally right. I mean, I met you got some info, huh?
I figured that out.
So yeah, I took the visual effects course in Vancouver Film School about I think at 2005. Wow, that's like so long ago. And that's when and I spent around between 4 and 5 years in Vancouver, working and studying. And at around that time, I met Ronan Tantrum, which didn't take, like, he didn't study at the same time as I didn't meet him at school, but I just met him around Vancouver and from the industry and stuff. And I think at that time I wasn't aware of TouchDesigner in that realm. It was only because remember I went to the Vancouver Film School. I was in visual effects. In hardcore.
Right. So Houdini was one of your tools?
No.
Okay.
No, I learned about Houdini after TouchDesigner, and only later I realized how it's like forked, because I think I know of Houdini as a name, but not so it was like soft image and kind of After Effects and Buju tracking and all, like visual effects pipeline, but I was always interested in the real time stuff. So it was like Kinect point clouds and Arduinos, and they're all kind of rolled in slowly in my career. Like again, fresh out of school, you're going to be a compositor. So I worked in Image Engine. So I was an on-the-line compositor working on Nuke. That was my first, I guess, hardcore.
Yeah, so you're familiar with node-based tools?
Totally great. That was the first time I was actually seeing node-based programming or whatever you mean, whatever they call it.
Yeah, that's kind of a...
Wait, Greg, I'm having an interview here with
sorry.
Ori.
Sorry.
You get your chance after. I have some questions. I really want to hear what he's going to answer.
Because he sees the Skype. He sees the Skype.
Yeah, he's looking at the Skype.
Hi, Greg.
Don't worry, Greg. You're on next.
Okay, I'm off.
But I was watching the interview that you did with Elburz the other day, and you said some like amazing things that I just don't want to spend too much time talking about, but quickly. TouchDesigner. TouchDesigner is a tool for everyone. TouchDesigner as a tool for problem solving. TouchDesigner as a substitute for a whole bunch of tools. And my favorite, TouchDesigner, the MacGyver of tool for anything that has to do with physical, digital relationships of any kind.
Wow, that sounds awesome.
You said that, like, and you kind of said that all at once, and it's.
Yeah, because again, maybe I should talk about from continuing with my background, just because it's like the meeting point of all my experience. It's not like I rolled into TouchDesigner and saying, oh, that's a cool program, I should use it, and it will give me the thing. So imagine, like, very short, imagine a guy that learns Softimage, After Effects, and Buju, tracking, right? And really interested in visual effects, like taking like 3D shit, putting it on some live footage plates, and making awesome stuff. But he really likes also the physical world, and he likes music. So he uses Ableton. I mean, I'm talking about myself as a third person.
That's you, yeah.
Yeah, but it's. I think it goes to so many people. So I think I'll keep it in that way. So the person continues and learning Ableton, and then he realizes that Ableton can be programmed and connected too with MIDI. So he uses MIDI, and suddenly he discovers stuff like Arduino and Kinect, and that whole real-time devices and sensors. And then fast forward a few years, he meets this amazing dance company called Maria Kong, and I start working with them full time for 7 years. And this visual effects guy, who is dealing with content, suddenly I'm starting to work with dancers and live staging, and that's what I'm where I'm at now, calling TouchDesigner like almost live visual effects for me. This is live visual effects, because the dance company wanted to do everything real, live. That's when. I did a lot of projection mapping before knowing TouchDesigner, just because of content creation in the content, and then suddenly you need to connect things and do everything in real time. And it got to the point where I was like, so, and then during that time I learned TouchDesigner. Suddenly Arduino, processing, MIDI, real-time graphics.
Wow.
Create like 3D compositing, all funneled down to one thing called TouchDesigner. And it was mind-blowing to me, because I think I cannot thank Ronen Tancham enough, because I think for him it was like, not just explaining someone, but really, if you don't have it, that's why I appreciate Elburz so much, in the first baby steps, if you don't have that guy or that go-to person, website, whatever, to say, how do I take these two chops and combine them, add them together? Like a math chop can be like mind-blowing, like it can be like too much to handle. And so don't even start. I'm not thinking even about opening like Python or GLSL. This is like so.
Maybe we'll do a whole episode on the math chop.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think we could talk about this for a very long time, huh?
Yeah.
But I think Marcus might want to.
Yeah, sure, whatever. I'm so excited from this TouchDesigner. Yeah, I can go on forever. So yeah.
Well, you're gonna have quite a long time to keep talking about all this stuff. But so I mean, congratulations on your win.
Thank you very much.
And it was just amazing watching you do the piece that we're looking at right now, because right when Elburz said the myth of Sisyphus, and that's totally what I was seeing too, right? This pushing thing. But what is your reference for this?
So I think you're hearing my girl. She's waking up. Don't worry about it. No worries. So, well, again, I'll say that I'm a content creator by nature. Okay, I'm a content creator, and I'm inspired by things by nature. Before I'm a programmer and visual guy and all that stuff. So, what you're looking at here for me, and I was telling that to Elburz in the interview. For me, was this thing that you're looking at now was the result of a creative journey, of a true creative journey. And when I'm saying creative journey, I mean the fact that it has a lot of emotion in it, because it kind of like came from like a little struggle in my relationship at the same day that the competition happened. And I was like, oh, right, let's change it around. Let's try to make something good out of this struggle. And then somebody in the forum, the Discord forum, was saying something about, oh, I think this challenge is going to be about some landscapes. And I was like, wow, landscapes. And little things fell into place. And then it came to be. So for me, what you're looking at, it's like two people. You don't see there's another person at the back. I don't know if you see it. But there's, it's like two people pushing the wheel of the musical wheel of life. So this was like the vision when I created it, right? So, and I can talk technical about stuff, but that was the juice of.
Wow, beautiful.
Thanks.
So what are we going to optimize for you today? Are we going to work on this patch or a different patch? I'm not quite sure what you gave Marcus and Greg.
Well, I was kind of I don't know. I was a little bit lost when you were asking me about what my struggles are, because they're so.
What struggles?
Like, I mean, it depends at what moment you catch me in, right? and then you have to solve it yourself somehow, you know. So and then you go on and on. But I think I was just I was bringing up one question that I really have is like, how do you create a shadow pass? You know, as a guy that does a lot of live plates and visual effects, how you do a proper shadow pass and not like just trying to color the shadow on a Fong mat and dropping it in and trying to figure out how to comp it right, because it's never really exact. Because if you have the fall off of the shadow and stuff, you don't really get it if you're just trying to hack it and comp it. But I know if it's something that we can get into, you know, I'd love that. I don't know how exactly, but
well, I think it's going to happen. So
oh wow.
Yeah, so why don't we segue over to the to Marcus and Ben, and Marcus and Greg.
Almost, yeah.
All right, nice chatting with you, Ori. Really, again, congratulations.
Same, thank you.
Talk more later. Yeah.
Okay.
We've been
social media.
Oh right, yeah.
There was just one other thing, but it would be great if you had an Instagram account or some way of sharing your work. Or
that's my next. Like,
or also
next mission.
Also, definitely post in the TouchDesigner community on our website. That's a really good place to post stuff. Okay, over and out.
Yeah, great. Well, welcome, Ori, and thanks. You sent us actually this file, and it was really nice to see. And when we talked earlier, you said that you see TouchDesigner as something where you're dealing with data and its different representations, and this is something I can relate to very much. Everything becomes just kind of the same thing, just in different ways. So a color with RGB becomes points in space, could become a stereo audio signal or something like this. And it was great to see that you're also making use of this here very nicely, because the audio is being analyzed with an audio spectrum, I believe, somewhere. Yeah, an audio spectrum. And then you're trailing this to get kind of the like a histogram.
Yes.
Histogram of it, and then you use that, convert it into chops to deform this tube that you have. And I thought that was a really nice way.
I mean, if anybody is watching it and is curious, there's something really simple and cute you can do. If you multiply the spectrum, I mean, if you want to deform something, so you need to use the normal of it to deform it in the right way. So you're actually taking whatever you want to distort, and you're pushing the normal. So I think you're multiplying the normal and then adding that to your position. So it's just that's what you're seeing right there. Yeah.
And the only thing that caught my, I like this, I really like this technique because it's going the way of, it really showcases how you can go into different families and do stuff there before then reapplying it to geometry in this case.
Yes.
I meant to point you though to one thing that was added not too long ago, I guess. We do have also the ability to actually, in materials, so in the PBR, you can apply a normal map. And you can create normal maps from, like just with a normal map.
Totally.
So you could use this as a normal map in this material here. And I'm doing this dirty without any nulls. And then you can enable height maps.
Yes.
So you can
I'm aware
use
of that, but when I used it, it's a little bit tricky when it comes to reflections and shadows and stuff like that. It's not like really like deforming the geometry. There's some like shadows still don't. I think in like self-shadowing doesn't yet is taken into account. I think, or maybe it's new. I haven't tested it in the new version though. Maybe
we do not have self-shadowing from what I know.
Yeah.
But just for if people come to the conclusion
sure.
that the subway gets a little bit heavy with high point counts and stuff like this, then certainly you could try going the normal map, enable the height map, specify a height map, and then control the display scale for a little bit more performant. But I mean, I also looked at it. It almost takes. It doesn't take much. Like it's like half a millisecond. So totally fine to do it this way. Yeah.
To be honest, when I did it in the competition, I didn't know exactly how it's gonna go. So I said I'm gonna use the chops, so I'll have as much flexibility as I can without like because height map is a height map and period. When you still stay in chops, then you can still mold it in different ways.
Absolutely, has a different, again, it's the representation of data and how you can work with it. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and I think this is the first, if I would ever teach TouchDesigner, I would say, remember, it's all data. There's nothing else but data, and it's just the way you chew it and spit it out.
Exactly. The other thing, obviously, is you make really nice use here. I really love the lens distort in here. You have a little lens distort shader that, which gives this whole thing a really nice dramatic feel.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah,
really like that. So
this is a little shader toy whip. I took something and I adapted it and did some custom parameters.
Yeah.
What are the custom parameters on it?
Oh, you're a bit quiet, Greg, but
what are the custom parameters on it?
You have distortion, in XY, I guess, and scale and offset. Yeah, it's super nice. That's a really, really great effect.
Is the post-process on the render?
It's a post-process, yeah. The original input looks like this. Yeah. So I really like this. But one of your questions, maybe we can just hop straight over to that. One of your questions was about shadow path, and initially I wasn't quite sure Oh, now I lost my mouse again. 1 second. There it is. Initially, I wasn't 100% sure actually how to do this. So yesterday, then talking to Jared, Malcolm, and Greg was in the call too. We figured out a way how that is done, and it's a pretty simple GLSL shader actually that makes that possible.
Okay.
I was working on a different thing for dome projection, just also an example, and just using stuff from Touch that's available to us. Mainly, what you're seeing here is just a sphere with the default FBX, humanoid that comes in the samples folder loaded in. Mm-hmm. And then I cut the animation a little bit and made the person run around around the sphere. And I thought before getting into a shadow pass, maybe it's interesting for people to see how to actually add shadows to the whole thing. This is something that's not too obvious, but so it's just for everybody else to see. Basically, you can set shadows on the light. And I have 3 lights here, which are with CYM, projecting CYM lights here, and rotating around the sphere as well. And now I can turn on soft shadows, and I already get pretty nice shadows going. Now, one thing that's often what you can do is you can basically specify the shadow casters here, who casts the shadow, who doesn't cast the shadow, and if the quality of your shader or of your shadow is not enough for you, you basically increase the shadow resolution. This is how you get nicer soft shadows, and also you can play around with these parameters a little bit. That stuff tends to get fairly heavy, but yeah, it's worth playing around with. And now what a shadow path is, what you're looking for is basically only rendering out the shadow, right? You only want the shadow as a texture, as seen from the camera as well.
Yeah.
And so what we found was you can make a render path, and all these render tops, they have the ability on their advanced page to overwrite the material with a custom material. So you can create your own custom material that's then applied to the geometry. In my case, all that I want to render is not the whole thing, but I just want I don't want the person running around, basically. I just want the background. And I think it's Geo1/Geo1, let's see. Which is just the sphere. No, let me see. Yeah, Geo1/Geo1.
So this will be the equivalent of just like rendering the shadow catchers, only the one you want.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right.
So
yeah.
now I just, So now I'm just rendering the sphere exactly, but now I just want the shadow, and this is where we can create a little shader. Let me take a Fong here. And there is the output shader option where you can just create a GLSL.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you get your default GLSL shader, and I can apply this here to my render pass on the advanced page, overwrite material.
Mm-hmm.
And the next step would be that I can leave the vertex shader as it is. And if I look at the code of the of my pixel shader here, this is where I have to do some programming basically. But first I can basically delete pretty much all of this here. What do I need to keep? Not much. I can take out, I just need the out color, and I need my loop over the lights because these lights are casting the shadows. So I want to keep this. this loop here for int td num lights, and then I can get rid of all of that stuff. And I don't want to multiply this with alpha. Can take all of this out, and I can take out everything inside my light.
Opa.
And then, so it becomes a really small shader in the end. Now in this light loop, what I now want to do inside the light loop is apply a function that's available, which is called td soft shadow. So I can take my out color here and add.
Is it really going to be soft shadows, or it's just any kind of shadow? I mean,
it's the shadow that we have those two shadows. So we have soft shadows and hard shadows. And
so you can also add the hard shadow over here.
Yeah, you can do that as well. I mean, it basically picks whatever the setting of the light is. So you can specify both. You can specify soft and hard shadow, but only the one that's needed is being selected for that light. And inside the soft shadow, you have to specify the light, so that's I, and you have to specify the world space position, which you get through the through this invertex structure here, ivert dot world space pos.
That's the world space of the light.
Of the light, yeah. And why do I now get an error? That's always good. Undefined variable alpha, right? Somewhere here's alpha. I want to take that out.
Line 39.
Thank you. Wow, that looks interesting. Not what I was expecting. What have I done?
Maybe because it's like dome. Maybe it's like because it's like the render is like a dome render. Does that make sense?
No,
maybe you have maybe you have another object that you don't see.
I'm just specifying Geo1 here, so it should be only the one. I wonder. Oh, you know what?
And you were adding in the hard shadow as well, weren't you?
Not using hard shadows either.
Okay.
So let me do. Yesterday I got this
Plus
working pretty nicely.
So is it plus equal? So you're starting off with 0, aren't you? Does out color start at 0 or out color? Oh, it does start at 0.
Yeah, it starts at 0. Not sure if I need this. Maybe. What did I do differently yesterday? That's always interesting. When you try to replicate, I should have tried to replicate the whole thing.
Why don't you pull up your file that you...
It's basically my shadow settings. That's what it is.
Oh.
It's whatever I set my shadows to, I think. Those are the actual shadows currently.
Wow, that's awesome.
Oh, I set the max shadow strength, max shadow softness. I set to, I set much smaller. Yeah, then you get.
Oh wow, that's
then you basically
awesome.
Get your shadows out. So that
and
was.
It really, and that's a true shadow pass. That's awesome.
So it's.
So it really.
Yeah, fairly simple. Like literally empty out the pixel shader, and then this is the one I just wrote. Empty out the pixel shader and just keep the light loop in here, and keep adding the TD soft shadow to the out color, and that's it. Yeah.
So Marcus, why don't you talk about why he has to write this code and how we're going to change the Phong shader to include that. So in the Phong shader, there's show the choice of things that you can stick into the output buffer.
Right. So we have on the advanced page of the Phong shader, there is a color buffer that you can add to output extra things. So, for example, you can output the depth. No, can you output depth? No, that's not true. You can output the point color or the camera space position as a separate kind Can I do that here too, actually? No.
Yeah.
Let me do this here maybe just to show that.
Yeah.
So if you add these color buffers, then you have access to these color buffers with cache select top. So this is the way to get access to all the other color buffers that might be in your, you would think.
Is it not a render select?
Oh, sorry. Is it render select? Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Not a cache
Cache
select.
select is used with the cache top only.
Color buffer index. So you would think that I'm getting one. Nothing that I didn't try.
What's the warning?
There's no color buffer. I wonder if my other problem here is that I'm.
Did you add it?
No. Or
you didn't define buffers in the render.
Yeah.
I'm also not sure if you if you can do this on the shader on the override. Actually, I'm not sure if that works with the override material or not. I'm not sure on that one.
But do you have to make an extra color buffer in the render one or the render pass one?
Oh, right. Is that where you put this in? Yeah, you would have to do it
number
probably,
of color buffers. Yeah.
Yeah, you would have to do this on your render. Right. Okay. Yes, it does work like this. So increase the number of color buffers on your render, and then in the render pass, even you can overwrite the material and set what you want to output onto this color buffer. So point colors, camera space position, and camera space normals in these things. And this is the place also where we would be putting the shadow path. So
you're gonna include that?
Yeah, so that's going to be as a
awesome.
separate color buffer.
Yeah.
I use the color buffers extensively because when you're compositing, this is the stuff you need.
Yeah.
You need all this point in space, and we map them and do anything you need to get some effects going, right?
Yeah. I just came across this in the last day, watching what the other guys were doing, and now I'm realizing that the data's there to pull out. You just have to set it up and yank it out, and then that's where you start playing around with the compositing. You can do your blurs, colorings, mixing, and all that, glows, and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So it's kind of interesting. So yeah, if there's other stuff that we need in that menu, let us know. But
sure,
trying to get. So I want to get a couple of snippets for the render top or render pass top out, so that this would be an easy thing to copy and paste and get the setup right, because it takes a little bit of know-how which things to which parameters to change to get what you want. So
I have a question.
Oh.
There's a question from the chat here from Tim Gerritsen. He says, "Wow, nice to add those color buffers. Would it also be possible to add world space pause and world space normal?"
Yeah, go to the menu, Marcus. I think there is a world space pause of this surface.
We have camera space and.
Jared says he'll add those to the list, but maybe it's
okay.
Yeah.
So we'll have to add that in as well. The world space normal and world space position.
Yeah.
And maybe a bunch of others.
So this is then a much simpler process, obviously. For now, it's not too difficult either if you know how to. And again, the idea is that you can add TD soft shadow and TD hard shadow to this loop.
That's perfect.
If you're not using hard shadows, it will not process this basically. This is basically your default shader for a shadow path. Yeah.
Wow, thank you. I'm gonna definitely use that.
Nice, good. And the other question you had was more around staging, preloading, and such of components.
Yes, I
What is-
guess I can share like something I'm doing right now, but I
Okay.
think to kind of generalize the question is, I'm building this system um, where I have a component, okay, and that component needs to get a parameter like if it's image, video, text, video source, or sound, and get a source. So meaning this component gets video blah 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 dot mp4 go, and it needs to load that in. And the other thing, it needs to fade from the other state it was. So if you're loading video file, video mp4 go, and then it's playing, and then you are saying, let's say, text saying hello world go, it will cause fade between them, right? And I need to do that many times, like many of these components. So I wondered how to. I'm using preload, like Elburz in one of his tutorials was showing, and anything I can that the system won't lag and won't stutter, because when you in this system, when I press go for like 5 of these components to change, and each of them cross-fading from previous content to a new content, it's pretty heavy. So I did stuff like delaying each component by a few frames so they won't go at it together and stuff like that. But I was generally, I guess, asking Marcus what would be, I don't know, a good way to kind of I don't know, prepare things just before they need to be presented, or maybe even a deeper question: what really makes TouchDesigner stutter? In the sense of
Good question.
what's yeah, like I can do something crazy and boom, the whole thing changes and nothing stutters, but I load the file and everything gets stuck, So I don't know even how to really phrase the question. I can show you. I can show you what I'm doing, but I think it's just a broad question, right?
Greg, do you want to start with that?
Yeah, I can run with that. Yeah, there's exactly that question of what do you need to do so that TouchDesigner doesn't stutter when you have to load a tox file, close a movie, open a movie, get something from the internet, query something and get the text and put it up ready to be displayed. All this kind of stuff is happening asynchronously, and so my answer for that, as it turns out, is always use a timer chop, but it's using the timer chop in a way that's maybe not obvious. So I wanted to just show you a couple of examples.
Yes, please.
Okay, so the one place where it's used very, very explicitly in this way is in the movie player, which is in the palette. So when you load a new movie, all this stuff happens under the hood, so that while things are preparing, it basically goes to black, fades out, preparing comes on, fades out, does some stuff to close a file, open a file, and then fade it back in, and then preparing is over. So here you can see there. So that takes a fraction of a second, and you don't want the timeline to stutter. So what I'm using under the hood is a timer chop. So the interesting thing is that I divide things into stages. So the timer chop has the ability to actually have a sequence of timers. So in this case, the first stage is fade out, and then unload the movie that you were playing before, and then initialize something, and then load the info of the next movie. And while you're loading it, you have to check to make sure that it's loaded, and then you finally get the info of what the resolution is and the number of frames per second and stuff like that. So that's the load info check, and this cycle column is actually all these correspond to these two columns correspond to parameters that are in the timer chop. So it does a start state for it starts here. It does a fade out for 12 frames, and it replaces the length parameter here. So you notice, whoops, the length parameter here just tells you normally how long the timer runs. It might loop, but if it doesn't loop, that's the length, that number of seconds or frames. So this is an override. So because we have a column called length here, and well, let me put down a raw one here, top timer, TI. Yeah, the default parameter for length is, this is how you spell sorry, it's the lowercase length there. We have something called cycle, which is its flag, on or off, so that's 0 or 1. So these columns actually override the parameters. You can override the speed and a bunch of other things. So so this is like having 10 timers back to back. So
all right.
This shows that, and these are extra channels you have access to while it's running. So these are just arbitrary ones, even the stage names. So for instance, unload you can do in 2 frames. You initialize the next thing in 1 frame. You load info. You're checking to see if you have the info. So you want to cycle until it's ready. So you don't know how long the movie file top is going to take to give you the resolution. So you're waiting until you get it. And then you click a load button, and then you wait for the thing to load. And when that's done, because that's cycling, the load check is going to cycle until it's done. So
right.
every frame is going to check, do I cycle? Cycle. Is it loaded yet? And then once it's loaded, there's another delay of 3 frames just to take a deep breath, and then you take 12 frames to fade it in. So if I go to the timer chop and go to initialize and hit start, you'll see it go through a whole thing. So the segment number here is the row number, and well, you can just watch it. Initialize, start, bang. So you see it happens pretty fast, but basically it's loading the new unloading the old movie file and loading the new one. And right now they're the same, but I'm just doing this for illustration. So I'll hit it again. Yeah. So yeah, if you can see the fades going out and on, and these are being, this fade out and fade in are being controlled via the outputs page of how to ramp things out. Segments, how to ramp things out and in, stuff like that. That's all
and everything is happening in the callbacks, like all the actual.
Right. So here a lot of stuff is happening in the callbacks. Exactly. So it's the callbacks. What do you do at each stage? If you're running the load info stage, what do you do? So it's all happening in the callbacks here. So when you start a segment, you say, if I'm in the unload stage, I do these things: lock the thing, get this, and then if I'm in the stage, and that's at the beginning of a segment, when you start the segment, on segment, enter. And during a segment, when you're looping, this is while timer active. So you say, if I'm doing my load check, what am I checking? Here's a timeout at the end, and you jump to the next segment here. So this is all kind of pretty rocket science inside the movie player, but that's the basic idea of doing things asynchronously, where you have to do a whole bunch of things. So you can imagine that instead of having a table like this, that you each one of these things are the different jobs you have to do. Load a movie, query the web, cook this, load a TOX file. So these would all be different things. So you have to figure out what your script is here. But then the timer will just do it all in sequence. So let me just give you an example from here of doing this with a scene loader. Okay, so I set this thing up here on the right, which is a bunch of scenes, and each scene is going to take, I can have inside scenes. I have 4 scenes here. I have a funky place here, which has another scene. So I want to just gather all my preload work for all the scenes into one place. So the way I set these things up, which is what we recommend, like Jarrett does this in a lot of his work, we put a parent shortcut to identify that this component is a scene type. So they all have scene, parent shortcut. And the reason why it's yellow is because it's normally you type in the string and it's like that. But if you want to do something, if you want to enable the parameter to be read-only, if you don't want anybody to touch this parameter, then you enable read-only, and it makes it not editable as you undo it. So this way you kind of block out, even for your own sake. I don't want to touch this again, so you make things read-only. So it makes things a lot more understandable for those who are looking at your work later, like what can I play around with, what I can't. So I want to gather together what all the scenes are. So each of these scenes are pretty simple. All they have is a timer in it, but I'll go through what that does later. So first thing is to find all the stuff that you need to gather together and work on. So I use an opfind dat, and you can see that this is a path to all the scenes. And the opfind is set up so that it looks in from here. Actually, I can say starting from scenes. Starting from scenes, and anything scenes anywhere in that scenes component. No limit to the maximum depth. Look everywhere and look for. So what you're looking for is a filter. I'm looking for a parameter name. Any of these components that have a parameter called parent shortcut, whose value is set to scene, qualifies as a node that will go into this table. So that's the most basic thing for it, because it qualifies. Okay, I don't want to get into the whole get include thing, but let's just leave it at that. So I found all my scenes. So I can do this. So it's totally procedural right now. So now I want to send this table as the table that I run with a timer. So this timer is going to go basically row by row, and there's no length here. We don't know how long it's going to take, but that'll be determined by the scene. Each scene will tell us when it's done. So here I have a timer chop with this segment set up. What's happening in here? Yeah, so here's the only thing that's important here is when I start a segment, I take the scene. So basically I find which scene it is. I'm getting the path. So you can see I'm getting the path column from that table. So I'm getting this string, and then so I know where the scene is, and I am I'm going to an timer chop inside it, and I hit the start button. So basically, I tell that scene start loading. Basically, this is a start loading timer prepare start loading. So basically, the timer chop in the scene will take as many frames as it wants or needs to load your stuff. So in this case, when it goes to each scene, let's go to scene 3, for instance. So inside scene 3, found that, goes inside it, and it's looking for timer prepare, and it starts its timer. So basically, click here, and what I'm doing here, this is kind of a simple thing. It's not really doing any work, but when you start this, it would on start, let's say, instead of it's on the text port, it's preparing whatever it is. So let's see, bring over the text port on the other screen. Yeah. So all I'm doing here when I hit start is just say, well, I'm just printing something out. But here you would say, query the internet for, do a query and get back a result with a JSON and get a string out. So that's what you would start here, the query, and basically on cycles, it would loop until it's you query and loop until you're done, something down here, and when it's finished, I'm saying it's been prepared. So all I'm doing for this component is just looping, but looping for how many seconds? I'm just looping for 1.7 seconds. Basically, I'm taking 1.7 seconds to finish what I'm doing. So hitting it, start again, and 1.7 seconds later says I'm done, and then the done channel comes on. So the key thing here is once it's finished doing its work of initializing or preparing the data, once it's finished, it's going the done channel comes on. So that's what I'm looking for in my master timer. Okay. So if I go back to my master timer, what I'm looking for down here to figure out while I'm cycling, I'm checking to see if the done channel has gone on. Once the done channel goes on, while I'm cycling in the master timer, once the done goes on, I say, okay, I'm done. Go to the next segment, which means go to the next row in my table and go to the do the next thing that you want to initialize. So this way, it becomes a variable time as asynchronous, and you don't stall TouchDesigner waiting for something to finish. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, all right, totally.
So we'll just
I
run
kind
it
of,
here.
I started touching it, I guess, with the preload to do all kind of stuff like running a Python script that keeps checking if the video file is on. But I think I can take it even a bit further. Now that you have all the media loaded, right, and you want to kind of mix it, because another issue I found is like, how do you properly, in this situation, how do you properly mix audio, right? You have have like a lot of video files that going to change their video sound and maybe even change bit rates, and you want to kind of mix them all. One way I found is like select. I do like in a select chop. I do let's say I have 10 scenes, then I go scene like a star, and then selects whatever inside, and then it brings me everything in, and then I math it, like I add it together. Is there any better way, or or something like that? I mean,
that's a good question.
I think
Marcus?
In Jared's scene component as well, you usually what you have is a separate component that takes care of the crossfading. So like if you have an A/B crossfade, an A/B kind of setup, where you have one scene followed after another, then there you would have two selects which always select from the current and from the next, and then have a certain blend time that crosses over.
Yeah, that's right. In the case of audio in the movie player, it's fade out, fade in with the audio as well. But that's just going from one thing to another. There's not multiple sources. So the this is it. Just you apply a gain to fade it out here, and then fade it back in. But that's not what you're asking for. I think I have in my time-based timeline tool. There's a lot of audio mixing going on, and one of the approaches is you have to control the output. So you always want to be able to output a stereo channel or 4 channels at a certain sample rate. So you have to really control. You have to make sure that the outputs and the sample rates are consistent with each other.
Yes.
You have to do. I often have a base of silence, so it would be like 4 channels. Let's say my output's 4 channels. The silence base is basically a 0 time slice 0 audio at 48 kilohertz, which then has stuff just mixed into it.
Yeah, I understand. Just to keep like a reference point. This is how the
that's right. So let me see. I just let me just do just something really simple. Audio oscillator. The channels I want. Oh, this is only one channel. Okay, what the hell with a hold on. Amplitude 0. Oh, this is merge into 1, 2, 3, 4.
Sorry,
okay.
We forgot to turn mouse trails on for you, Greg, so nobody's actually seeing your mouse, but
oh, bummer. So do we do that in Parsec?
No, you do this in Windows. Mouse trails.
Can I do it quickly? or should we just
I
skip
think
that?
so, or you can skip it.
Yeah. So right. So sample rate 44 kilohertz or whatever you want, and that, and then you just start taking other sources of audio, yeah, whatever, and kind of mixing it in with math chops and so on. But that's one thing. But I'm not sure if that quite answers your question as well. Fade out, fade in. That's another issue as well.
Yeah, I guess my question is generally about it's a lot about switching audio and switching video sources and switching, and I'm trying to eliminate as many as stuttering outcomes. So from when I was experiencing exactly what you're doing now with the audio, I realized, I have a little tick when a file starts to play. So I figured I have to, that when you start mixing or it starts the fade, then I have to kind of do like a little mini fade in, fade out, just so
Yeah.
it won't come in direct, and then boop, you get this little tick.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
And,
So
again,
you,
also it's with the video and other stuff. I'm trying to figure if I have all those scenes and there's many things happening in the scene and every scene have maybe a few of things I want to pull out of it, but I just one is active. Then I guess it's a lot of selects, tops and chops. Does that make sense? Would you recommend that?
yeah, when you change the source of your select, you want to avoid cooking. So if select gets from here one moment and then from some other place another moment, you may not have cooked your next scene enough yet. Right? So you have to make sure that this thing is ready to go. It's already playing or something.
How would you make sure an audio file streaming into that chop is ready to go? It doesn't have. This is exactly my question. Like, how would you know this chop or any kind of top is ready? Can you? I guess should you use force cook? But force cook will also kind of stutter if it's not asynchronous.
Yeah. Well, for instance, in the case of audio, if you turn the speed down to 0, it's still outputting 48 kilohertz, and it's not. So when you switch to it, as long as you have it queued to the beginning or the right place, so you can queue pulse, queue to the beginning, and then so it's ready to go. It has everything preloaded. There's probably some info. I guess there's a preload here. Info chop tells you what's preloaded. How much time is preloaded? Something here. Okay. Anyway, but if that's the case, then as soon as you switch to it, you can turn the speed up to 1, and then it goes without a pop. Of course, the first sample though might be a not 0, so that's where you also will have a pop, right? The first sample that you need is there something here?
So you need to make sure where you cut into, huh?
Yeah, that's
that
right.
as well. Yeah, where you also can use the volume for it with I mean, it depends on if you need it from one frame to the other.
Yeah, that's right. So
a mini fade in.
Yeah, you can have mini fade in, fade out using filter chop, right? So filter with a linear filter chop going from off to on, basically, and that will, you turn the speed on completely, but you turn the volume up gradually. So constant.
With the speed 0, Greg, wouldn't you, though, the audio file in basically is always cooking, right?
Yeah, that's right. It's always cooking, but it's not doing any I/O, right? It's not getting any new samples from the disk file, so it's okay. It's just to be parked on one frame, and it's not really. It's a tiny cost, and it's not. Yeah, there is a cost, but you just got to live with it. If it's just spinning its wheels, because it's pretty minimal.
Yeah.
And because some people just try to do things like bypass it. That will produce a pop. Turn the cooking off. That'll be definitely a pop. Stuff like that. So the best thing is to have a live audio source kind of spinning.
Yeah.
Ready to go.
I see. All right.
So I don't know. That's one answer of it. But it's interesting because when you turn this sound off, there's that time where you have to fade out, and then you're done. So it's not the time when you say off that is the end of it. It's actually off plus the fade out. That's when it ends. So you really have to be careful about how you use your chops to designate when to move on to the next thing.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So
wow, that's awesome.
Well, there's more to it than that, but
of course. But that's a nice nice way to look at it and to take it from there.
Yeah. Marcus?
I think maybe we should continue. I mean, there's for every project and for every situation there is different loading mechanisms. I believe we haven't found the golden bullet for all of them.
No, I think, but I don't think there is one golden bullet. There's a whole bunch of them around. Because it depends what the logic of your system is. So sometimes it's with scripting, sometimes it's with the scheduler, sometimes it really depends upon the architecture of your system. So I gave up believing or stopped believing that there's one golden bullet that does things perfectly.
Yes.
Because we're always finding a year from now I'll have a better solution for you, and everybody.
You know what? Thank you so much for saying it, because there's always this feeling that you don't know how it's done properly. but it's true. I mean, thank you for confirming that, because again, it's always feeling like you're missing some mastermind solution.
Yeah.
But it's true.
No, these things end up being so complex, and every developer develops their own application, learns as they go how to do it better, and we at Derivative find that there's things that are missing that will help people do things better. So that we add features in just to make it better. I mean, the reason why the timer shop came into existence in the first place was I was watching Jeff Linnell demo for the movie Gravity, his amazingly complex, crazy chop network for running live shots on set. The live shots were it's basically a timeline of a shot was 1 second to 3 minutes, and it was controlling visual cues, audio cues, video playback, robot control, a lighting, a preview composite, and it was this amazingly complex network with hundreds of nodes in it, and I started crying almost because it was too complicated. So that's why the timer chop was born, because it does, with all these segments, it does what he was trying to do in a much more concise thing. But as time goes on, we just find a little more elegant ways to solve things. So anyway.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Awesome.
Yeah. So you don't feel frustrated if you think you don't know enough.
And it's especially
the right way.
It's funny that you mentioned the timer chop on this, Greg, because the timer chop is one of those things you approach it and you think it works in one way, and you try to build it that way, and then you find, it's exactly not working like this. You have to approach it for that specific case that you're trying to do in a different way. And so the timer chop itself is very flexible on adapting to different cases, how to build it. So don't give up if it doesn't right away does what you think it should do. There is most likely a way where it's just being used differently, where it does exactly what you need. So it's a deep one. It's another math chop basically.
Yeah,
it's like the math. That's right. And so also the snippets for timer are very useful to cover a lot of the cases.
So if ever I'll make like some huge blockbuster, something using TouchDesign and Greg comes in, we'll invent another job.
One note, yeah. And then we all have to throw away, including me, have to throw away our old ways of doing things. And it's like, okay.
Is it something that happens in derivative? You feel like it's sometimes you change the whole thinking about something in Touch?
Yeah. I mean, for instance, when we came up with the idea for DATs at a meeting, an R&D meeting about 10 years ago, we were facing a whole bunch of problems. Where do we put shaders? Where do we put scripts? Where do we put extensions? Where do we put tables? Where do we put just raw text? And we looked for a while and realized, all the stuff we were doing with really obtuse methods, we could just do it with a new family called DATs, and it's been quite useful since then, because we didn't want to put things into DIS files. We wanted to put things into something live that could be procedural visually. So, when that happened, we just threw a lot of old junk away and started going down the DAT route.
Wow, super interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. It was in the forum, but it's supposed to go into this. Is it in the scene? Yeah. I don't think it's there yet. Okay. Uh-oh. Oh, here it is.
Techniques looks empty. Funny.
No, here it is. Stuff. No, it's not there yet. Coming soon.
So the other thing I might...
It's on the forum.
It's on the forum, and I'm not sure if I haven't released this yet because there's a clone bug, but some people that attended some workshops in February have seen that it's the, we just called it Obscener because why not, or I named it this. It's basically another scene player that staggers the loading process. So you're first loading a scene, but you're looking at a scene and then you're looking at all the elements separately, and all of these elements are reporting back their own preload methods, which goes back to the main playback system, which then loads each piece of the scene separately and after each other. So you have control over every single scene component. And
yeah, that does much the same thing, but with extensions, Python, callbacks, and all that. So it's a completely different way of doing the same thing.
Yep. Staggered loading algorithm basically.
One thing I didn't mention too is, and our users are starting to do this, thankfully, is when something looks like it's going to be super heavy on CPU, GPU, on startup or whatever, they would put it into a separate engine component and run that from TouchDesigner. From the main thread of TouchDesigner, running a bunch of engine components. So we didn't even talk about that, but that's another thing which needs.
That's something we might be getting into when we're talking to Dylan next.
Yes, please do. I haven't got a chance to get my hand on a commercial license yet for the new for the new engine comp version. So I'm looking up for that.
Okay.
So maybe thank you so much, Ori, for taking your time.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Ori.
Thank you, guys. A pleasure.
Very inspiring, Ori. That's great.
Thank you. And honestly, hope to see you around more because you've been flying under the radar.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah.
Thank you. I'll be so happy to share. So thank you. Thank you. I mean, thank you for Elburz for making that competition, and thank you for you guys for making this program. And I wish to take part of this community.
Yay!
Perfect. So we'll see you soon. Thanks so much.
See you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
And with that, we're going to Dylan. Hello.
Hello, Dylan. Welcome to our little yellow universe here.
Glad to be. It's bananas.
It's bananas, yes. Everything is bananas and forever bananas, I think, right? So, first of all, congratulations for your excellent excellent outing at the championship. I mean, I don't know how you guys did it, but just producing in 1 hour those beautiful, beautiful finished pieces, props. So
Thank you.
we were talking before, and I mean, you've been in the community for, I feel like we've had conversations for about 12 years.
It's been a while. I've been a bit of a lurker for a long time.
Really? I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, well, that's changing. So
It is.
but just a little bit of your background here. You started off as an illustrator, moving to motion design, to broadcast graphics, advertising, and then projection mapping was kind of like your gateway to TouchDesigner.
Yes, it was. It was the gateway drug,
Right.
and I'm glad I took the blue pill, the red pill. Oops. Yeah, it was, I've loved aesthetics and design since I was a really young kid, drawing, doodling. So I guess you could consider me a bit of an artist at heart. But I love engineering. I love computers. I got into computers at a fairly young age and building them and experimenting with like Linux distros and stuff and wrecking the parents' computer. I installed Linux over Windows one time. It was really funny. But so I love the art and the tech and bringing those two together. And illustration was really fun, but not totally fulfilling. I always wanted to push it a little further. And Touch, once I started using it, I just thought like, wow, I get this program and I love the direction of it and the philosophy of it and the ethos of it. Compared to other software developers, and I love you guys, and thank you so much for making this a reality, and it's just such a wonderful community to be a part of.
It's a wonderful community, that's for sure, and we're glad to have you in it, of course. So one thing I noticed throughout on the Skype, you've been taking notes. So
yes.
So this entire time you've been jotting things down.
Yeah, not a whole lot, but just bits and pieces.
Very nice.
Bits and pieces.
So tell us a little bit about The Experiential. It's a company that you started with your partner, Anita Kuharchik.
Yeah,
and she's
exactly.
a fine artist, and you're the illustrator. And I saw on your website these beautiful oil paintings with projection mapping or even interactive layer to it. Yeah.
We love. She's the fine artist, and I'm more of the artist / digital engineer. And fusing these two mediums, the analog world and the digital, is so fun with TouchDesigner, and it really opens up, new frontiers. And we're really exploring that really deeply now through the lockdowns, and just diving deep into how we can bring, the classical art mediums and digitize them into something that's really augmented. And not just analog, not just digital, but both. It's a lot of fun. We have a lot of fun together.
I think the first project that we sort of met each other was that Shogio Mujo with. Can you tell us a little bit about that one?
Shogio Mujo. Yeah, it's this big, 15-foot skull that was 3D printed, and it was originally for Burning Man back in 2015 or 2014, is a while ago. And it made a debut again in 2017, and now it lives in Las Vegas at Area 15 as a permanent installation there. But it's a 360-degree projection mapping on a skull, and the skull is transformed at night into these, a variety of different scenes and animations and pre-rendered content and generative content and all sorts of stuff. And for one of the showings here in LA downtown, I did a patch in TouchDesigner for it, where we completely used TouchDesigner entirely as the playback system, and also handling a live web canvas feed from mobile phones. So you could hold your mobile phone up, use this app, and like sort of VJ video onto the skull in real time over the wireless network. It was pretty fun. And it's just so exciting to use Touch. We use Touch in all of our projects now. I look at our portfolio, every single one. We use Touch in it because it's just such a playground and so fun to experiment in.
Fantastic. So are you finding that things are starting to pick up a little bit after, LA, you're in LA, you're still kind of in lockdown, but things are coming back online a bit?
It does seem that way. We're finally getting some projects in again. Hooray! And things are starting to look a little up. I think it's going to be a a slow recovery, slower probably than any of us would prefer. But what I do love about this this whole time, Isabel, is that it's finally given me the chance to really push the brakes and focus on what's really important, and focus on our internal software and developing our own products, rather than just doing commercial work, which I've kind of gotten used to over the last decade. This has been a really good breather and a time to sort of reflect and look towards the future and what we really want and what really matters.
For sure. And I think you guys have been like super proactive in that regard. I mean, everybody's been all hands on deck, making assets, making tutorials, developing tools, and I mean, Nodeo, that's currently in alpha.
Yeah.
Are we going to have a look at that today, or because I think a lot of people are talking about it in the chat? And,
I'd love to show it off, a bit. It's just this generative art gallery. That's what you can kind of think of it as. And so, it's basically, in a nutshell, over the years, I found that I don't just want to make one scene in TouchDesigner. I want to make 10, 20, 40 scenes, especially for hours long shows. And so Nodeo basically is like a playback system to help play these back without losing or dropping any frames. Now, we've been talking about like Engineception here behind the scenes. I'm using the engine,
right?
6 engines currently. There's going to be a 7th in it. And I can show up I'm on an i7 7700K here, I think. Yeah, so it's an older CPU using 100% of the CPU, but there's a ton of TouchDesigner instances here. And so the end goal with this is to have like 4 generative media players, and you use them to composite a show all in real time. And you build playlists and create new playlists and basically add in as many generative scenes as you want, and movie files and sound files and transitions, and but very simplistically, like Keith's Luminosity and Fusion are just incredible applications. I'm just blown away. And even like Richard Burns' Simple Mixer, and Matthew Radisher's TD Sorcerer. There are so many amazing apps out there, and that each of them stands on its own is like, that's really cool. This one is just designed to be really simple and straightforward and intuitive, or as intuitive as possible, to sort of solve this problem of playing back multiple generative scenes at once. And so this is my passion project, has been for the last like 4 or 5 months, and it'll take me through the rest of the year and beyond. So if people want to, view the GitHub and comment and give me feedback, email me, anything, would love to hear your thoughts and feature requests and what could make this better, because I want this to basically stay free forever, and just my little gift back to the community for all the code that I've borrowed over the years and patches and stuff.
It's fantastic. Well, thank you very much. We're gonna put the link in the chat shortly, and I think I'm gonna turn you over to the lads and get into it.
Sure.
Anyway,
and
thanks, Isabel.
Yeah.
Sorry, I cut you off there. That was unintended.
Totally fine. Okay.
But yeah, well, it would be nice actually to have a look at this on the big screen after perhaps going over some of the questions that you had initially, because you sent us the files, and you said for the first challenge you had this augmented reality game that you were building, and one of the things that you felt, oh, this is a deep dive, was using the actor component or the bullet solver system to build kind of a to detect collisions. And Greg prepared, if I understood that correctly, a little component that shows how that could be done fairly quickly.
Awesome.
I think, Greg. Oh, Greg, you're muted.
Yeah, that was a question about collisions and stuff like that, Marcus?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I looked into it a little bit, and I started off with this example, which had very simple object collisions. So these objects are by the way, do you hear any sound? No, eh?
No sound. No, we don't have sound.
Oh, good. Okay.
No,
Okay, good. Good. I'm going to just mute this whole thing. Volume down. Okay, good. So yeah, so the Bullet works in two ways. One as just discrete actor components, or a single actor with a whole bunch of instances. So this is a simple case of discrete actor components, but the collision stuff works in a similar way. Here's the solver, and we had added in towards the end of its development callbacks from the bullet solver on collisions. So this is on anything colliding, and you can kind of mask things out and so on. Well, the default one is basically fill in the blanks kind of thing, but on collision you can get a set of collisions. Even if one object collides with four things in one frame, you'll get a separate object in this loop. And so for each collision, the information you get is what the body A is and body B is, and the body can be an instance or an actor component. And there's a class in the wiki called body class, which says what the members are, but we can see what they are down here. So you can just loop through all of them, and some of the stuff you can get out is the translate, rotate, and angular velocity and linear velocity of the object when they collide. So that's part of the body A and body B objects. So the most obvious thing to do with it is when there's a collision, you just output let me see, output, here would be the obvious thing, output a command to trigger an audio play. So audio play is over here. I have two of them, bing and a bong. I don't know, that's not really a bong, it's a bing and a bang.
Damn it, we should
Well, it's
have
not a bang and a
definitely
bong.
looped audio.
Bang and a bong, yeah, okay, a bang and a bong. And yeah, so this command, the trigger, it's the event op. Oh, you can't see my cursor. Hey, Marcus, can you tell me how to get Windows to...
Sure, yeah. You go to your mouse settings.
Okay. Mouse. Oh yeah.
Mouse settings.
Yeah. Wow.
Adjust, I think it's additional mouse options.
Okay.
Yes, and then you have the pointer options, I think. Is it that one?
Yeah. Pointers or no?
Oh wait, where's mouse trails? Damn it.
Oh, pointer options here.
Oh yeah, and there's display pointer trails, the third
Here.
checkbox, and then
This
set that to short.
Okay, I see. Okay, that's it?
That's it.
Wow. Thanks for giving me support, Marcus.
No problem. Anytime.
You're not going to bill me for that, right? I don't have a pro license, though.
That's yeah, problematic.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Check the forum next time.
Yeah, all right, I'll ask on the forum. Okay. Okay, I got to get rid of window, and okay, so now you can see my stuff. Okay. Right, so this command down here to where is it? Audio play, yeah, audio play, op audio play, par.trigger, pulse. So basically you're hitting the trigger on audio play to play the sound kind of thing. So the problem, okay, so you get information about the body collisions, but unfortunately you get too much information, because if two bodies are touching each other, then you'll get a collision every frame, and that's a drag if you're trying to play sound, because you don't want to play the sound every frame. You want to play it on the first contact. So my last hours last night and first hours this morning was trying to figure out ways to mask that out. So I was trying two different ways here to do it. One way was to take the get the velocity of the two colliding objects, B1 and B2, and get the relative velocity of the two. So relative speed, and looking to see if it's over a threshold. And if it's over a threshold, then I did something, creating an event. So this is another trick. I'm not playing the sound directly here, but I'm creating an event to try and mask things out in case I get multiple repeats. So sometimes if one of the objects in this example, if one of the objects is actually going along the slide here, it's doing like constant, it's doing constant events here, and you don't want to do that. You don't want to generate audio triggers for every one of those. So I was trying to figure out ways of masking it out. So my trick was one is using relative velocity, and then I was using the event shop. This is kind of interesting thing that people don't use very often, but in this case, you can see the event shop triggering. Okay, so here's a whole bunch of events that are happening. So the events are actually being added. So it basically creates a sample of a chop that lives for a finite amount of time. So in this case of the event chop, I have a sustained time of 1 second. So this event stays as a sample in the event shop for 1 second, and then it just disappears. So so if I have a whole bunch of events happening, you're going to end up with lots of samples. So those samples are not generated by the inputs. They're generated from one-line script here. Here, op event 1, create event, and I can give it some data that we put into the channels and so on. So that was a way of checking to see if I'm checking to see if there's already an event for this collision in the event shop, and then if so, I break and don't, or I pass and I don't generate a new sound event. So this is another way of filtering things out. All that to say is that, and in the callback for the event shop, I'm choosing whenever a thing is created, whenever an event is created, I'm choosing which sound to play, the box sound or the puck sound, and I'm using the nice indexing. As this isn't an if statement, this is an if-else thing, but it's a list. List one, first thing in the list, second thing in the list are 2 strings, and I'm using a 0 or 1 here from a channel to determine which sound to play, and then from here I trigger the pulse on the audio play chop. So that's what's happening on create to generate the so the event shop kind of is a little bit of an intermediary between the and Elburz. I think this is a perfect idea for an Elburz workshop. Is everything you can do around the event shop because it's kind of underutilized, right?
Yeah, and I think actually Elburz was partially in a project with us when we added quite a bit to the event shop, if I remember that correctly.
Okay.
Because it didn't have any of the callbacks, and it didn't have the extra, because you can give it extra variables that you're...
Yeah, right.
So you can give it even velocities from your collisions or something like this. You can also have this as channels in your event shop. It's quite powerful.
Yeah, in fact, this uses that feature because these are the extra channels that it adds into the event. So when the events happen, you get a sound channel. Basically, it's 0 or 1. And that's an extra channel that tells me which sound to play, the box sound or the puck sound or the bang and the bong sound. So that sound is being sent in via an array. This is extra stuff to send in to add as extra channels. Anyway, that was as a result of that project that we added these Python features to it and some other tricks. So now I because I just discovered this problem where the collisions will keep on happening on subsequent frames, and it's a real irritant. I think Eric's going to enhance the bullet solver, this function here, to give a trigger 0 or 1 based on whether it's the first contact or it's this secondary contact and so on. So it means you have to test all your you have to keep all of your collisions from one frame around to the next frame, but that's that. So I don't know if that's... Oh yeah, the other thing is also that comes out of the solver is the chop. So the bullet solver chop also has a for all the objects, it has the solved channels coming out. So I'm here in this case, I'm just asking for the collision info. Is it colliding or is it not? So this doesn't tell you much about multiple collisions on the same frame and stuff like that. So it's limited information, but it gives kind of good rough stuff. So if you just want to have a rough sound of cascading things when things are falling, you don't care about every individual collision and if it's repeating or not. If you don't care about it, then this is kind of the way to go. So you can use chops to generate stuff or generate sounds or secondary things.
The bullet solver chop. Sorry, the bullet solver and the chop over the ability to feedback with the bullet solver chop to the actors is actually a way for what you have been doing in your project file. Where, let me see if I have that here. I think I do it here somewhere. I just gotta bring up because what you had been doing was, why is that erroring? Cook dependency loop. What? Oh, let me start it.
Oh, those good old cook dependency loops.
I did not think that I would face this right now because that worked totally fine when I was building this up.
One of our embarrassments. Well, sometimes it's something that you have to find that it's like a treasure hunt or a puzzle hunt. Find the cook dependency loop.
It totally is. Yeah, funny. Well, anyway, the idea here on basically you were driving the position of your spheres. You were driving this with color, right? Like with noise. So nothing basically stops you from taking these noise channels or any position and replace the position that comes from the bullet solver with the position from your noise, and by that you're driving the position of the actors. So you're completely taking out any physical simulation here. All these positions actually come from your noise channels, but what you still get is your collision info. So
brilliant.
You can just use the bullet solver as a way to detecting collisions for anything that you're animating.
Beautiful.
And
That's
try
amazing.
to avoid the feedback loops. But see, it works if I connect it after it initialized. So now it's basically, I'm using the collision channel here to light them up when they're colliding. So, yeah.
That's awesome.
So what channels are you changing to light them up?
Oh, it's just I'm taking the colliding channel and I'm changing the color.
Oh, okay. I got it.
I thought this should have worked, but
Great fake.
It's not. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. So any modified channels in your from your bullet solver can be sent back to the actor or the whole solver, and it doesn't know that anything's changed, but it just keeps running with what you give it.
Yeah.
Yep. Yes. Okay. And that's I think that occurs also with Flex as well. The Flex solver has a top that you can use to get the solutions out. One pixel per one pixel per Flex.
Yeah.
1 pixel per Flex object.
Yeah.
Particle. Okay.
Maybe we should look at another question that you had, which was, let's see if it loads there. I thought that was interesting. It's really simple. It's the UFO. It's this one here, the UFO map, and yours looked like this here. Whoops. Sorry, gotta replace this.
So
I can't click. Oh yeah, I should explain perhaps. So what this is you were given a database of UFO sightings around the world over a certain period of time. I'm not sure what the time is, but there's a lot of data in here. 7,000.
Yeah, about 20 years.
20 years worth of sightings. Yeah, and sorry, yeah, correct. There was.
Yeah, and the columns of the table were what? Explain that.
Yeah, and as the columns, what you were getting here is the time it occurred, the city. You had probably state, country, things like that.
Latitude, longitude.
And latitude, longitude for positioning it in the world or on a globe. And
plus a story.
There is a little story, right? Comments.
Yeah.
A group of tiny, fiery, red star-sized lights. Very good.
Yes.
So, and the goal was to do a little simulation, some kind of visualization of that data. And you said in your email you were not sure if you were doing the latitude longitude correct because of how it mapped it onto the map. And looking at it, it does look kind of strange, right? Like it's a little bit boxed up. The regions seem to be correct. And there was something that I realized here, and it took me a while to find this actually. It's a good testament to how careful we have to be with shifting rows by one. Basically, for the latitude, you were selecting like the latitude column, and you're not including the first row. And for the longitude, you were selecting longitude.
Oh, wow.
Womp womp.
And there. So this basically gives you an offset by one, which results in what you see. Now, what you could do to prevent such things, and a nice quick solution would be to just use the .2 chop and output channel per column. First row names, first column is values. Then you have it all already. You're grabbing definitely the same rows.
Right.
And once you're connecting this to the rest of your network, then looking at the map, now it becomes more visual. And how is it that all the former British colonies have so many UFO sightings? Could there be? I would like to see a correlation with ghost data, ghost sightings, if there's a correlation to this or not. But anyway, that's a different topic. I really like this. I really like this whole setup here, and it's so nice because it
all that done in 40 or 50 minutes.
40 or 50 minutes exactly, yeah.
And where did you fetch the Earth map from the web somewhere?
Yep, NASA.
NASA. Yep.
Yeah.
Putting this together and then using the normal mapping as described earlier to do the displacement via the height map here. So yeah, no, it's a really nice network example as well. It's great.
Thanks.
Yeah.
And great find, Marcus. That was easy.
I can just see that these things are exactly what I would be so lost in if somebody gives me an hour. I'm like, oh.
So what's animating though?
Good question. What are you animating?
Noise. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh, it's
really low period noise.
Okay.
While I was doing it, I thought it would be great to pull like from the years and maybe do it sort of like a time lapse. That would have been my next approach with maybe 1.5 hours.
Yeah.
But this is a nice fake to it because if people know that there's time involved in the whole thing, that was actually my assumption. I didn't even look any closer at it. I basically figured, oh, it's animating, so you're doing something with the time.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's a a great
so there's quite
representation of that.
all the contestants had there's a great variety of things. Some were just working on the quotes and doing kind of cheesy things with aliens and quotes, and Ori's had a UFO pointing down at the Earth at different individual spots with the text coming up from that, and so I think Ginger was looking for certain keywords in the text and summarizing those and stuff like that. So there's people just goofing around with the data in quite different ways.
Yeah, that was nice.
Mm-hmm.
Going from here, I'm wondering, would you mind giving us a little tour of the Nodeo software? And if you have questions towards this, that would be really great to see.
For sure.
I'll put you onto the screen here.
Thanks.
Oh wait, that's not you, that's me. That is weird. Is that because... wait, what? Uh-oh, here it goes, live debugging. Source gas 3. Alright, sorry everybody. We'll have Dylan up there right in a second.
Mm-hmm.
I just gotta find the right network. Okay, current talking.
Yeah, I think Dylan, you were the one who did the Kandinsky image for the art challenge, right?
Yes.
Right, that was pretty nice.
Thank you.
Looked really
It
nice.
was really fitting too. Just the geometry, simple,
Yeah.
easy to execute. It's the
Yeah.
first one that came to mind for me.
Yeah. You got nice texture on that too. And also during the challenge, you for the first one, you had a Oculus headset with a Z camera attached to it, and Leap Motion sitting in front of you, and you were basically making a augmented or AR scene from it that of balls that you can touch from your POV. And I forget how you're using the Z camera depth. You're using the stereo image of the Z camera.
We got Nodeo up.
Perfect.
Nodeo.
Yay.
Right. So in a nutshell, it's like a quadrant-based system. So there's quadrant 1, 2, 3, and 4, and each one sort of serves a different purpose. So the first one down here is like the media browser. So I programmed these buttons where you could make one full screen, just to focus on like that area. So here's like the generative scenes. These are toxes. And then in here in the movies folder would be movies, sound files, live streaming, basically video device ins or NDI ins, and then transitions. And then I'm planning on text modules for like lower thirds and stuff. A lot in this roadmap. This is just like, it's alpha. So the idea is like you drag and drop different media items. You can drag and drop multiple items at once. And also I programmed a button where instead of dragging it like between, you can also drag something on top and replace it. So this is kind of like the the replace button versus insert button. And so basically build up the playlists. You can make as many playlists as you want. Although one question I do have is like, okay, let's say I keep making playlists. See how I need like a scroll function to
Yeah.
But who's going to have that many playlists? I'm not sure, but you never know. It's again something I need to think about.
Are those widget buttons?
Yes, they are.
So why don't you reduce the width of it based on how many buttons you have?
That's a great idea. I probably should do that. It's just like a web browser, right?
And the other option is also...
I didn't come up with that original idea. That was I'm gonna have to attribute that to someone maybe in 1964 or something.
You could also have a look at the container components, or all the panel components have scroll bars that you can set as auto. They're not skinnable, and they pop in a little bit sometimes awkward way, especially for these things. But it would help with the scroll bar. Yeah.
That'd be a really cool idea. I love scroll bars, and I would love to know if you have any plans to like make these customizable as far as like colors go, or if that's just too like.
So that's a lister component that you have there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think there's the deep Python coding to change colors, but I don't know. Marcus, do you know how you change colors in Lister?
I'm actually not sure. Let me see.
Yeah, because I looked through the wiki and looked everywhere in Lister, and I couldn't find it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm not sure. Are we using Lister? Yes, we're using the Lister scrollbars, of course. Yeah, let me find that.
Okay, yeah, no worries. So so anyway, that's like the first quadrant, right? And then the idea is that up here is like the preview sub-quadrant. And if you wanted to, you could always drag and drop a node, a media element directly onto, and it loads it on just using the drag and drop, which I love as far as features go. It's quick, fast, and easy. And it's basically an A/B player. So it goes A to B, B to A. And then I've also got a D channel down here that plays back the actual transition, or in this case, it just did a cross dissolve, which is the default down here. So if I wanted to load a custom transition, then you can also drag and drop transitions down into here. And same thing with the multiple transitions. So if I get one down there in time, it should play back a transition the next go around. So D bank basically plays transitions on top of A and B with alpha, and then the C channel is for like streaming or just other movies. It's like an auxiliary channel. The reason I did 4 is because it's RGBA is how the shader works. So it's basically red, green, blue, and alpha for these. Oh, you can see there it didn't load in it didn't take the transition that time, so it's still buggy, but working on it. And then
so do your media elements have like a maximum time that it runs?
Yeah, so basically the duration by default can be set to 30 here, but if I wanted to, so you see like right now we're playing back number 17 here, abstract thing, and so you see the timer's running. If I change this to like 90, then now it automatically adjusts in real time. So it's using just a timer for this, and it's updating the timer. It's actually calculating it using the timer speed, which I found was more effective than, because you can't change the timer duration, right? While you're running a timer, but timer speed works.
It'll jump. Yeah, you change the speed to avoid it jumping.
Exactly. So
you can do that sometimes. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that makes sense.
So the duration goes in there, and then specify any duration you want for any of these, and or just pause on one, and it'll just stay there. Of course, I just paused it in the middle of a transition, but now it's on the this, and I can just pause it and leave it on there. But what I wanted this originally for was just to play back all of my generative scenes on a Twitch stream 24/7. So I've been running this like 24/7 for the most part, trying to like figure out whether it stops working, and it seems to keep working. What I did notice though is that in these engine comps, the CPU memory utilization goes up, and it goes up until basically the computer runs out of memory resources. So I've seen it go as high as like 20 gigs. So what I did is I just had it automatically restart in like a cron job inside of Touch every 24 hours while the other one is visual or visible. So it just does it kind of behind the scenes, and that keeps it running. And I've had it running for like 20 or 30 days sometimes, I think was my record.
Right. Cron job. But I think you can restart a engine comp.
Exactly. That's what I mean.
It?
Yeah, that's what I mean. Okay. I say cron like loosely. It's not literally a cron job.
You Unix guy. You Linux guy. Oh my god. That's okay. That's where I came from too.
Right. So this just shows the output, and then down here is just basic playback controls. And I even Vasily started this really cool curves component, which I just loved. He did an amazing job with it.
I saw
and so
that.
I just tweaked it a bit, and it's so much fun to like do real-time color grading, because this is like not even possible in Adobe world. At least it is, but it isn't. So this is really fun, and I love like being able to make components. And
I'm gonna steal your graph editor.
Please. This is all like free. And I'm sure it could be like more optimized. Like Nodeo is kind of chunky right now. Like in Task Manager, like I said, like my CPU utilization is at like 50%, so it's maxing out right now, which is why these frame rates are pretty abysmal. But if you run it like just on its own, it seems to do fairly well.
So I think that's the fact that engines increasing in size is a bug we should try and tackle. That's great. So you got ramps galore.
Oh yeah.
You like ramp?
Yeah. No, I love ramp. It's all about the ramp. It's simple and just colors. Aesthetic is a lot of fun. Just experimenting and iterating and just these are more of like placeholders than anything right now. But
that's very nice.
Yeah,
very beautiful placeholders.
We did see that you have the option, which I thought was interesting and really nice. You're shuffling between visual, transition, and audio separately, right? You have shuffles for each of them.
Exactly. Yes, that's correct.
So that should give you some diversity.
Yeah, exactly. Just like shuffle it up, or manual mode is default, so just manually do the order you want, or alphabetically. So these were the three main modes I thought would be most sensible for playback without trying to over complexify it. Because I know there are so many tools that do like 10,000 more things than this does. I'm just trying to do something here that's like really simplified and only what you need, and then if you want to build on top of it, go for it.
Yeah, I like it. It does a lot for what you call a simple tool. But,
thanks.
But gee.
Really simple.
So, did you, as you were developing it, were you changing kind of the way you were designing it? So, explain the last couple of steps and realizations that you had to refactor things.
Oh, big time, Greg. It was amazing. Like, I went into this thinking, okay, I'll have it like 1, 2, 3, 4, like I talked about initially, like the 4 channels, A, B, C, D, output, and then originally actually it had no interface. And I thought like, I'll just do a back end thing and set it to run automatically. So originally the first iteration had no interface. And I thought, I should probably add some sort of interface in. And so it was originally just like a really simple lister down here in the bottom left, and then these 4 windows and this output, and that was it. And I thought, there should probably be some playback controls. And I went through probably, I don't know, like 50 different versions of just, and I don't mean like versioning up. I mean like, let's see how it looks like this. Okay, no, let's see how it looks like that. Yeah. Just over and over trying to. It was really fun because I wouldn't have arrived at what I got now without that iteration. Because originally I was like, it's just one playlist. Well, what if they want multiple playlists? Okay, I need to do some sort of tab system. Okay, what if they want to rename the playlist? Okay, what if they want to delete the playlist? Yeah. And then, we don't want them to accidentally delete the playlist, And then what about adding more items and doing this all, asynchronously? Yeah. One thing I'm still trying to work on for the movie player is, this, where was it again? In the engineer, there's another engine for the movie where I'm basically trying to, forgive me here, it's in the external components, make a movie thumbnailer where it actually generates the movie thumbnails when you add a new movie into a directory in Windows. So basically, there's no movies in there right now, of course, but it takes the folder and then, basically using getting the info from that movie and like setting the resolution and the duration and essentially saving out, a small thumbnail. So I'm trying to, load all this asynchronously while running the app, so you can have like movie thumbnails. The movie thumbnails are generated in an engine component? Exactly. Well, it's not working right now, but that's the end goal because this will run, but I drop frames when it's in the main process. Yeah, so.
And you only do it once, and it can be heavy because you gotta open the file, wait. So just like I was showing in the movie player component.
Exactly.
So, that's great. So what else do you have in engine components apart from that? Is each of the 4 quadrants?
Yes. Yes, they are. So
one engine. Okay.
Yeah, basically, there's one quad heading engine here, which is like the main one, and this splits out into the separate outputs you see here. And there's also, some data coming in from the network, like color curves, for example, is feeding in, as well as different parameters and just different, animation states. So what I did, and I can't remember who posted on the forums, but someone thought, and I think this is a genius idea, but I'm curious to know what you guys think, is to make it so you could load an actual, instead of just a tox file, drag and drop like a comp in there.
I'm dying for that.
That would be amazing, because right now inside of this external base is where I run, like, here's the quad heading, so it's almost like the template, and I just have it set to not cook, because I want to try and keep everything in the same project. But organizationally it gets a little tricky, because now, see, inside of here I have the 4 sub engines, which I called stator, because it's like the part of the engine that doesn't move, it's stationary. And so stator is actually here, which is really simple. It's it's just got the tox loader. And so here it feeds in the tox, and then I have a plan here for DFX files from Notch. So this is going to support Notch here probably in the next, hopefully the next few weeks or month at the latest. And then movie files as well, because I know that's a big request. Everybody wants to be able to play movies. So basically it's tox, Notch, and video files. So all the engines are inside of the quad heading.
Cool.
So we did have this. We did have a slight conversation, and it touches on something Ivan was just mentioning on our internal chat, that the when you make thumbnails, you could have a look at the VFS class. The VFS class is our virtual file system class.
Right, yes.
And just recently it got this addition for add byte array. So you can take a top and stuff it right into stuff it into the VFS system, which
but
and
you still want to keep that separate from your main TOE file, because they could get huge, right? So you want to have the thumbnail sitting in some other.
Well, sure. Thumbnail always sounds like it's like.
Well, it could be small.
Yeah, and Ivan's also saying there's a virtual file in the palette, a virtual file component, which grabs all images somehow. I haven't tried that out yet, but it apparently has some automation to it. It's becoming it's kind of fun to try to what can you store in TouchDesigner with this add byte array, because what happens if you save a TOX or something and then load it into your engine comp from the VFS?
I had a question for you guys. What is engine using to transmit data from the engine process to the main process? Is it touch ins and outs? Or is it something else?
Because they're running on the same machine, they're shared memory.
Shared mem, okay.
Yeah. Okay. And it's not quite like Spout or Siphon. It's slightly different, but it's similar. But it's apparently shared texture memory, I think. So Malcolm's probably going to ping me and say, no, you're wrong, Greg. But I think that's what he told me.
Because I heard rumors on the forum that using Spout was faster for getting textures in and out of engines.
Oh, really?
But I haven't confirmed that yet.
Okay. I'm ready to hear that. Yeah, so we've been working on getting DATs to and from engine.
Awesome.
That's pretty close. Yeah, it's actually Tom Butterworth is the guy's been doing the engine development work. He's the guy who did the Mac port, and what's the file format? Video file. HapQ. And one of the authors of Siphon, original authors of Siphon. So he's been working on various side projects with us, to our delight. So yeah, that loading from a component instead of from a tox file is like a very, very high on our list now.
Awesome. Yeah, can't wait.
Yeah. So yeah, there's also been the request to send SOP data between applications. So that's another thing that we haven't started on, but I can see how and then we're talking about scenes, and that's getting into another world of interoperability of sending scene data from application to application or within Touch. So, but anyway, I don't want to get too ahead of myself.
That's great. I love all these sneak peeks.
Keep going, Greg.
Yeah, tell us more.
Make more promises we can't keep.
This looks really amazing. Great work.
I love it.
Yeah,
Thanks so much.
Right. So, anything else in there that where you changed your design as you went several, over the last year or so? Organizational structure and stuff.
Yeah, I'm still even still to this day changing it. One big thing that I struggled with was how to differentiate file types. So for this media browser, originally it was like just gen, because I thought, it's just going to be generative. But what about movies? What about sound? What about streams? What about transitions? What about text? Nomenclature is like just a job in and of itself. Trying to come up with consistent nomenclature for the entire app. I can't tell you how many times I rename things because I went, it's not consistent. It needs to be consistent.
Uppercase, lowercase, and having to go back and change all your scripts and your node names and UI look and
it's just so it's a lot of fun, but so much redoing and of work, but I think for the right cause, because again, I would have never arrived at this without experimenting. And what I love about Touch, I was showing this interface to one of my web dev friends, and he was like, "Whoa, you made that? What library did you use for that?" I said, "Oh no, it's in TouchDesigner." He said, "Oh well, no wonder. I was about to be blown away because to achieve an interface like this on the web just takes so much longer. Touch is just so quick to prototype with and actually see it and test it out. It's just so fun, and it would have taken me way longer doing a web version of this.
Even though TouchDesigner doesn't drive WebGL directly, one guy said, "Oh, I prototype all my WebGL in TouchDesigner because it's better development environment, and then take the shaders and bring it into the web."
That's great.
Environment. So, stuff like that. Yeah.
We do have a question. Just Rob from the on the chat is asking. It's kind of two questions in one, basically. What's the process of creating a transition, for example, and will you be creating a couple video tutorials or written tutorials for all the creation process?
Yes, absolutely. There's going to be a whole wiki for this. It's on the way, but it is planned. Nothing like your wiki. By the way, phenomenal job, so thank you so much to everyone at Derivative for doing the wiki. I know that's a lot of work. Jesus.
So we're having some sound issues.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yep.
That's one.
Something else happening.
Some planes flying overhead or something.
Los Angeles. Sorry, everybody. It's probably the military. Anyway, I have my sound canceling earbuds in, so I can't hear it. The transition system is actually really simple. Inside of the quad heading and inside of comp, I have this, like I was talking about initially, it's RGBA. And then this last is this. It's just a really simple shader for the transitions. And I know this could be like 10,000 times better GLSL code, but essentially it just takes in different chop values, like the resolution, the fractional amount, and the index, and it just processes it for each individual channel, and literally just puts the transition. That's creating like the shape of the transition. So like it's either a circle or a square, or it can be set, or just right now it's just randomly generated or randomly chosen. And then inside of, so like here, hopefully it plays back. Yeah, so see it did a square there. Sometimes it'll do a circle, sometimes it'll do a wipe. And those are just read from chop values. And then here, you'll see that it's another shader that's basically compositing the watermark. So it's like the little Nodeo logo down here, this bug, and the transitions. So like here is A for the transition. So it's just a really simple shader that I did and just composited it over. Yeah. Hopefully that makes sense. But yeah, the idea is not just to have talks transitions only, but actual movie files with alpha as well. That's on the roadmap in addition to just talks files. So again, it's like that whole, differentiating media. It's like, well, if the transition is a movie, then does it belong in the movie folder or the transition folder? So always more questions. But yeah, it's on the roadmap.
Yeah. Oh, no, nice.
Well, you also have the complexity of some movie files have audio, and you want to use that audio with the movie. So.
Totally.
There's a For some things that we work on, then Greg says that's not a task, it's a career.
That's a good one. I gotta write that down.
So, welcome to your new career.
Yeah, it's never ending, but yeah, a lot of fun.
Yeah,
and I noticed that there's so much potential in, like, when I was first learning TouchDesigner, I was trying to solve this exact problem of like, how do I get multiple scenes to play? So I hope that this helps people who are just starting out to create really fun content, because it's so easy, just to wire nodes together, but then be able to display it in like an actual, show versus just, one scene at a time. And I noticed too, like in some of my projects, I have like over 100 scene containers in a single project, and it's hard to manage, even cooking and not cooking. So just trying to make that management easier here.
Yeah. Hey, so let's do something to really break things. Can you go into perform mode? Is it just full screen that window?
Yeah. Oops.
Okay, great.
1 sec. Let me bring it over to the right monitor. So yeah, now it's in perform mode.
But you have networks underneath, though. Wait a second. How did you?
Oh, that's another TouchDesigner process. I had this open up just in case, but it's actually not the same project. It's just a different TouchDesigner project.
Okay.
Just in case. So yeah, this is just Nodeo in perform mode.
Okay. You have no other processes running other than this thing?
Well, there's OBS running. There's Skype running.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Take a look at the
okay. So just go into root. Go back in the network editor. Go into root, yeah, and just from the palette get probe. I just want to see what the bad news is of what's cooking. It's under tools.
Thanks. Yep. Probe.
Okay, so go into perform mode.
Keeps launching on the wrong monitor.
Okay. Press Control P.
Boom.
There we go. Okay, so that's, and put your mouse over. Okay, so what's going on? What's the super orange one?
That is the GUI.
Okay, and
yep,
that's CPU. Okay, on the left side, pick GPU, by the way, on the left side as well. I want to see what the GPU. Okay, that's not taking that much on the GPU, really.
Yeah, okay. GPU is great. It's the CPU that's killing this project.
Wow. Okay, so go on. Okay, in the main interface, in root. Are you in root now? I can't see. Yeah.
This is root up here.
Yeah. Okay. Press GPU.
GPU.
So it's nothing.
Yeah.
What supercomputer do you have running there?
That's this is a Core i7-7700K, super old CPU, and it's a Quadro P6000.
Okay, so go back to CPU time. Okay, and what's the thing on the right?
This right here is Nodeo, and then this is Probe over here.
Okay,
so go inside of
Nodeo. Yeah, go into Nodeo. Okay.
This is the quad heading down here. Now, do you know if Probe calculates it's taking into account, the engine like the compute for engines?
No, it hasn't been extended to take time for engine. Oh, so maybe there's a lot of stuff happening behind the scenes here. This is actually good. You have it kind of split because it's how many milliseconds is that running at on the left? Do you see?
It's about 10 to 10. Well, it's hovering between, because I know this is like it's exponential, right? It's like 10 to 50.
Yeah.
10 to 40.
So it's about 15 or something. Okay, not bad. Well, that's maybe we can go into individual components, but what's that one on the right?
This is par 4, so it's this quadrant down here, and it's the modules. It's color curves. Yeah, even though it's not visible. So I think I need to turn it off, right?
Yeah, if it's not happening.
It's not, well, the thing is, it's technically cooking, but I need to uncook the interface maybe, or because it's just it's really simple. I mean, it's just a lookup.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, that's pretty good. Okay, Control P. Say bye.
Wrap it up.
Yeah.
Oh, no worries. I noticed my window is in the wrong spot, so sorry about that, everybody. But yeah.
Yay.
Oh, I think people didn't hear me now. Sorry, you could hear me, but people on the stream didn't hear me, so I'll just repeat this. We put the URL for Nodeo onto the screen, so please, try it out, and thanks so much, Dylan, for making that available for everybody, because that is really what drives a lot of knowledge transfer in the community, is that people are sharing their quite extensive work. This is really impressive. Yeah.
Huge investment, yes. So Dylan, there was a question as to whether you're planning on making some documentation and tutorial videos, and I said you were.
Absolutely.
I committed you.
Yes, thank you. I needed the motivation, so thank you as well.
No problem.
It's on the way.
Well, thank you guys. We still have Ori and Elburz in our personal chat here, so it's been another really great afternoon of geeking out.
Exactly. Yeah, and I guess we'll be back in 3 weeks or something.
3 weeks or something. And so, guys, definitely, I'm going to put the link again in the chat, but derivative.ca/InSession. Go there. You'll find a link to a form. Fill it out and join us here.
Yes,
or you won't be seeing us in 3 weeks.
That's right.
Simply put.
And with that, maybe everybody have a nice beginning of August. It's August. Yeah, nice. Enjoy the summer, everyone.
Okay,
or winter. I guess it depends where you are.
Thanks, everybody.
Soon.
Have a great weekend, and see you in community.
Till next time.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.